what? What? This is a great opening bit, Digi. This is so fucking funny. I can't believe
All right,
how
class.
good you are.
Oh!
What?
Everybody.
Hey.
What?
Have bad news for you.
No.
Yeah.
The Earth is under siege
What?
by aliens.
I don't like that happening. How can we have that not be what's happening? Okay, let me guess. Animals are involved. Turn into them?
Did you read the syllabus ahead of time?
No.
You're just that smart. All right, today we are talking about Animorphs, the 1996 through 2001 children's book series by K.A. Applegate.
Scholastic Book Club, baby!
Yo, fuck kids who read books with words.
Demerit. All right, we're starting out strong, apparently. Okay, before we even go anywhere talking about Animorphs, we need to say, I forgive all of you and all of you at home. Because let's be honest, everybody slept on Animorphs, and now they're just a fucking meme because the covers looked retarded.
No, I was so into it.
Except for you, Ben.
I read this shit like all the way through middle school.
Me too.
Yeah.
It was me and you were the only people who ever read these books.
I read them too. I was there.
I forgive
I read
everybody.
more than you.
That's true.
I forgive everybody at home.
Fuck kids who rode books with bikes.
Another demerit. I didn't understand that at all.
That's two.
3 and you're out.
You're almost out.
Okay, because let's be honest, it was the mid-90s. Photoshop was not a thing anybody really understood yet. So doing a simple little morph thing back and forth from 2 photographs apparently might have been impressive to some people. And now the book covers are just memes. But
dude, that first one that has Jake turning into an iguana with like straight up like Power Rangers movie level CGI.
Yes, like
it's the sickest
the
thing
iguana
I ever
had
saw
like
when I was
6
like 9
polygons.
and a half.
It was fucking sick. Yeah, but you have to understand that everybody treats Animorphs as a joke. It's real fucking shit, and that is what I'm here to talk about today. So I forgive everybody for not reading them, but now I'm going to make you feel like a fucking fool for not having done it. Okay, so the general premise of Animorphs. We need to keep in mind, this is a book series for children. This was sold at the Scholastic Book Fair in elementary school. I found it when I was 9 years old at Catholic school. They had no idea what they were selling. Okay? And just like everybody else, I saw the book and I didn't know what I was fucking looking at. I was big into Goosebumps at the time, and so I was like, oh, this must be like a Goosebumps knockoff, because there's a bunch of Goosebumps books where they like turned into creatures or animals and stuff, and it was scary. And so I was like, that must be what this is. And then I opened it up, and like, it was about a kid trying to kill himself, and there was like a bunch of aliens and wars and shit, and that's what this book series is actually about. It's about interstellar conflict, child soldiers, and the horrors of war.
What?
Yes.
And dismemberment.
And lots
of dismemberment.
Is what
really sticks out in my memory.
Did you?
I remember I did read a few pages of an Animorphs book once, and they mentioned Blockbuster, and I was like,
Nice.
how do they get away with it?
Yeah. It's pretty...
And Quaker oatmeal.
There's a lot. There is a thing... I don't even mention that in here, but there is a thing with oatmeal.
For our younger viewers who are, the actual age range these books are aimed for, Blockbuster was a video rental store.
Imagine if Netflix was a real place you could walk into. That's what Blockbuster is.
You got your movies on these big black blocks that you put in a box.
You mean like VR? Like...
if only it was that. If only it was
add
that
an
cool.
extra
VR.
An extra letter.
More like VR.
Oh, VCR.
Yeah.
Never heard of it before.
All right, let's settle down, class. The general premise of Animorphs is as such. There is a war going on that's been going on for about 50 years by the time the series begins between 2 alien species, the Andalites and the Yerkes. So the Andalites are like, dude, if you're already getting overwhelmed by this, you are fucked.
Thin ice.
Walk out now.
I'm gonna need you to hold it together.
Thin ice.
Okay, so the Andalites are like the protagonist, like good guy species in this conflict. They are like these centaur-esque creatures that are like all blue and purple, and they stand on like 4 hooves like a centaur. They have like a humanoid-esque upper body. They have regular hands with 7 fingers, and they have no mouths because they communicate telepathically. They have like 2 stalks with extra sets of eyes on them because they can see in like any direction, and they have really a long fucking tail with a scythe on the end. They're like really, they're fucking dope. They're hyper intelligent and they're like really good at fighting, and that's kind of like where a lot of the technology that allows all the stuff in Animorphs to happen. The Andalites are the ones that invented it. So they invented like laser weapons that they call shredders. They discovered zero space, which is how you can do faster than light travel.
Yes, you have to have that in your sci-fi.
Yes, you do.
I want to know how it works, Tom. Please tell me.
Basically, the way that they describe zero space is that it's basically like the space version of antimatter. It's like anti-space. When you go into tunnel into zero space, it is just a white void, and you can basically punch through it and roughly go from one location to the other very quickly as a way of traveling essentially faster than light without having to...
It's like the nether in Minecraft that you hop into to get accelerated speed in the real world that you hop back out,
I'm
right?
too much of a boomer to understand Minecraft.
Okay, I got it.
I just have to say, by the way, as a Zoomer,
Yep.
I thought of Animorphs. Here's my conception of the plot. Guy can turn into Rabbit as like a superpower, and he fights maybe crime. Like there's a plot where maybe
I don't...
like
I forgive you.
Yeah.
okay,
Because that totally makes sense.
but you need to understand that it does. Like I assumed white suburbia kid with sneakers fights crime or
Okay,
something.
but here's-
it's space now.
Okay.
We immediately jump to
Hold
space.
on, we're gonna have to get through a lot of this.
There's a lot to get through,
Yeah.
okay? So the idea is that you have the Andalites, right? And so they're the good guys. They also invented the morphing technology, which is what the main characters of this series use to fight and continue their guerrilla campaign that goes on for about 5 years throughout the series of books. Okay, so that's the Andalites. They also are all telepathic, and so they communicate through what's called thought speak, which is something you can also
That's
do.
what hoes do on Instagram, as I understand.
Demerit. So those are the good guys, as it would be. The Yerkes are completely different. The Yerkes are tiny little slugs that are about this big. Naturally, on their home planet, they live in these big pools called Kandrona pools, and they get their sustenance from Kandrona pools and stuff. And they have like no vision, they have no sight. They're just like dumb little slugs. They're intelligent, but they really have no way of like capitalizing on their intelligence, and they don't have much in terms of a society. But their one thing that they can do is that they can go into your ear canal, wrap around your brain, and control you. So they're a parasitic species. And so by the time the book series begins, the Yerkes have basically stolen all of the Andalites' technology and are launching an invasion campaign across all of space to capture races, enslave them, and use them as host bodies. Nate.
So I assume that this war is just a defensive war by the Andalites saying, no, stop taking us over, because they're the good guys. Like, is there any further, like territorial dispute, like a Star Trek-esque, or...
Well, the Yerkes are just a generally invasive species. Their whole MO is to enslave
So
other
they're like
races.
the Borg, kind of. They just want to take
Sure.
over and... Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they were very limited in the beginning to their home planet, and for reasons we will get to in the plot later, they eventually gain space travel and just launch a campaign throughout the known galaxy to enslave as many races as they can.
Basically, these manlets got too big for their britches, and we need to stomp them down like we did back in...
Pretty much.
Napoleon?
1812.
That's what I'm
The
talking
Chad
about.
Andalite, the virgin year.
Pretty much. Okay, so the Yerkes have their own kind of like bastardized versions of Andalite technology. They have zero space. They have their own versions of energy weapons called Draken beams. And the thing you have to know about Yerkes is that when they go off planet, they no longer have access to Kandrona, which is like the life sustenance that they need. So every 3 days, they have to go what's called to a Yerke pool. And so it's basically an artificial recreation of the pools they naturally live in. They go in there, they absorb Kandrona rays, and then they go back into the host and continue doing whatever the fuck they want to do. So throughout the history of the series, there are like 3 main host bodies that the Yerkes have. And if you are a host to a Yerke, you're called a controller. So there are 3 controllers that you're mostly going to see throughout the series in addition to humans, because we're going to get to humans. There are the Ged, which are basically like another species that's native to the Yerkes home planet, and they're like the shittiest, worst, like bronze class, 1-star garbage host. If you have a Ged, your life sucks, because they have like an asymmetrical body. They can barely walk. They're almost completely blind, but it's way better than just being in a Yerk pool. So if you're like a fucking basic bitch in the Yerk army, you have a Ged body. The second race is called the Taxons. Taxons are like giant 7-foot tall fucking like centipedes with giant razor teeth mouth. And they're intelligent, but they don't really have much of like a society, because a Taxon's like biggest weakness is that they are eternally hungry. It's like an uncontrollable, insatiable, never-ending, eternal hunger. And even a Yerk overtaking a Taxon body, they cannot control the hunger. They are cannibalistic. They eat anything. Like if a Taxon gets wounded, it'll start eating itself. It's so fucking hungry. It's uncontrollable. So they have, not only are they using Taxons as controllers, but like the vast majority of Taxons throughout the story aren't even controllers. They're just working with the Yerkes just because the Yerkes give them meat, and they just thought that was a good fucking deal because they're always hungry. So a ton of the Taxons are just like, you're giving us food, we'll fight for you, and that's the Taxons. The third species that's in this, the Yerkes have are the Hork-Bajir. Hork-Bajir are like their main shock troopers. They're like the ones that'll really fuck you up. They're these giant, like 8 to 9 foot tall, like lizard people that have blades all over their arms and tails and then legs and shit, and they'll just fucking kill you. If you're like a badass, if you're like a general in the Yerk army, you get a Hork-Bajir body. There's not a lot of them because the species can't really reproduce very quickly, and they already, before the series begins, they overtook the Hork-Bajir homeworld and enslaved all of them, and there's not a lot left for plot reasons that we'll get to at this point. So those are the two main factions at war at the start of the series. And the start of the series is that the Yerkes have arrived on Earth, and that's where the story begins. Yes?
Just that, about the reproduction. Like, do the Yerkes in the bodies of the hosts that they control, if they need them for their army, will they mate with each other in the bodies? How do they create their armies?
It's a great question.
Well, they basically, the reason they're going all over the galaxy is to get more hosts and stuff. I can talk about this now, even though we'll get to it later, is that the Yerkes have classified all species into 5 classifications. There's a class 1 species, which is unfit for infestation. This means their biology is simply incapable of housing them in their brains. And so they have no interest in these. One of the species is the Skritna, which we'll get to later. They're unfit for infestation. Class 2 is able to be infested, but almost useless. The Ged would be an example of that. They have no battle capability, their bodies are shit, they're just bad. Like, you can use them, but why would you want to? Class 3 is viable, good, but has severe drawbacks. That would be the Hork-Bajir, because there's really none of them left. There's only a select few, there's a couple 100,000 at this point. They're great hosts, but there's just not a way to get more of them, for reasons we'll get into later. Class 4 is a species that is great, there are a lot available, but they're so advanced, they're very hard to take over.
Andalites.
Which would be the Andalites. Like, if they could, they would all be in Andalite bodies, but the Andalites would fucking steamroll them, because there's so much more Andalites than there are Yerkes. And then Class 5 is like the golden, perfect species, where there's a ton, there's a ton of them, they're not very strong, and their bodies are pretty good. It's you.
It's me.
And you. And you. We're all Class 5, baby!
We're just brainlit enough.
Oh,
Exactly.
I can't wait to host a swap.
Yeah, bet.
I think it's worth pointing out that a controller is not just, they don't just take over their mind. The controller is conscious and knows they are being controlled. And
Exactly.
like, they have to observe themselves.
You are a
up
prisoner
and down,
in your own mind.
betraying everyone that they love.
There are-
Fucked up.
There are lots of points throughout the entire book. Like, there's some points where you will be in because all these books are told in first person. So there is a couple books where you have the Yerkes perspective, and they argue with their hosts all the time because they're still trapped in their brain. They have conscious thoughts. They're aware of everything that's going on, but but they're just trapped in their own body.
Like when the Yerk goes into the Yerk pool, they come out of the brain, and the host is just like, ugh, I'm free, but they put me in a fucking cage, and I just have to wait for the Yerk to crawl back in my ear, and then I'm back to being a slave.
That's tough shit.
It's a shitty fucking time, and we're all on the chopping block at
Man,
this
I
point.
fucking hate those goddamn maggots.
Yeah, fuck them,
You
right?
know, I'd object to that, but I'm already hosting so many
Yeah,
parasites
yeah.
already. And
What's
to me,
one
it's no
more,
difference.
dude?
Yeah.
It's all good. Okay, so that is like the general premise. Let me make sure I'm not skipping over anything before I continue. I'll whip out my notes for the first time.
Worse than having the coronavirus, which I do.
Coronavirus.
Hey, don't
What's the
even
difference?
joke about that. Last year, when the coronavirus broke out
Oh,
at
it was a
Disney Universe,
nightmare.
that was a disaster.
Thank
They quarantined
God, thank
everyone.
God.
It'll never
Thank God the
happen again.
Andalites came and saved us.
Yeah.
We took care of that. It was great.
Okay.
The PTA. The PTA took care of it for us.
Thanks,
They're
guys.
They're watching out for us.
Appreciate it. All right, so the story of Animorphs kind of begins, and the series itself, that's all like some backstory. The series itself is 5 13-year-old kids are coming home from the mall, totally normal,
Yeah.
totally normal life. This story canonically takes place in 1998, so it is the 90s.
I've got Backstreet Boys playing in my head.
Exactly. So they all cut through an abandoned construction site to get home quicker. And
Never a good idea.
never a good
They
idea.
run into some urban youth, and it just doesn't go well.
No, they are the urban youth.
Oh,
They have
no!
nothing to fear.
So they happen upon a crashed fighter that has landed in the middle of this fucking abandoned construction site. And an Andalite comes out of this spaceship, and he's heavily injured. His name is Prince Alvin Gore, and he is like a fucking badass dude, but he's dying. He's dying. They obviously don't have no idea what the fuck is going on, but Prince Alvin Gore, for whatever fucking reason, has them come over and tells them about the Yerkes. He's like, the Yerkes are bad. They take over your brains. They're already here. You cannot trust anyone. Anyone you know could be a controller, and that's bad. Nate.
Why did he trust them?
Plot reasons, we will get to them here.
Oh, so
Okay.
so I was just curious. So Andalites can't like sense with their telepathic thoughts that someone's possessed by a Yerk?
No,
Correct, they cannot.
They can
cannot.
send their thoughts, but
Yes.
they can't like.
They
read
only
minds.
sense
I
the only.
thought that might be how they fight them. Or
They're not
something.
telepaths.
Uh-huh.
They just, because they don't have physical mouths and they eat through their hooves. They're herbivores and they kind of absorb grass through their hooves. That's how they eat.
Dude, when they step in a fat shit, are they like, oh, hey!
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, what's
They
going
love
on?
that. They love that.
Love it.
Okay. Thank you.
So they run into Elfingor, and he's like dying because his ship has crashed here, and he's fucked up and he's about to die. And so he's like, the Yerkes are here. They're already like invading this planet. You guys are in deep shit, and my buddies are not going to be here for a while. So your planet is fucked unless you do something. These 5 kids are the only thing standing between like the complete destruction of the planet.
Uh-oh.
Why does it have to be them?
Because he's about to die, and they're the only people he can talk to. Like, he's, like, literally about to fucking, like, bleed out and die. He's been in a crash, he's dead. You know, the rest of the ship he was with has been destroyed.
Maybe this is also something you're going to answer later, but, like, how come is he so much further ahead of the rest of the army coming to Earth? Like,
It
why-
will be answered.
Okay,
It'll be answered here.
Gotcha.
Okay, so he holds out this cube called the Escafil device, which is casually referred to as the Morphing Cube throughout the rest of the series. And so, if he...
Morphin' time, baby.
Recruit a team of teenagers.
Exactly.
With attitude.
Exactly. He's the Zordon of the series. So they all gain...
If Zordon died
Yeah.
immediately.
Only
Yeah.
Zordon had the good
Instead of in the
grace to
movie.
die at the start.
So he gives them the power to morph. And this is like the Andalites' most advanced technology and the most coveted technology by the Yerk. It's obviously really good for reconnaissance, really good for stealth. And so they get the power to morph, and then they all have to hide because a bunch of Yerk ships come down. And the main villain of the entire series, Visser 3, confronts Elfingor. And they're all kind of hiding, watching this happen.
He's a pretty solid dude.
He's great. By the time we're done, you're all
I heard he did some pretty fucked up shit though.
That's all propaganda. Andalite propaganda. Don't listen to that shit. All right. So, Visser 3 looks just like Elfingor. Because Visser 3 is known as the Abomination. He is the only Yerk to have ever controlled an Andalite body. So he also has the power to morph. And so he stands over Alvin Gore and he talks to them like they know each other because they're both badasses from their races. They have a big, long history. And he's like taunting him and shit. And then these children watch in horror. Remember, this is a book written for 9-year-olds. These children watch in horror as Visser 3 transforms into some alien abomination like 13 times his normal size, picks up the bleeding corpse, the dying corpse of Alvin Gore, and taunts him as he slowly rips him apart and devours him. And the mental screams of Alvin Gore dying echo through the heads of the children. And it specifically says at the beginning of the book, we never forgot this moment. They are scarred for life immediately.
That's an Attack on Titan moment, right there.
This is the beginning of the book series. And so the remaining 62 novels chronicle a 4-year guerrilla campaign of 13-year-old kids fighting back against this like massive tide of invading aliens with highly advanced technology. That is the general premise of Animorphs.
All right.
Y'all should have read it, right? It's fucking dope. Munchie.
I just want to say, because I have to ask, because I have to know, because you work as a security guard for an abandoned construction, like, mall site.
Yeah.
Did you ever hope that you would finally be blessed and that would crash an alien spaceship and
Every
then you would be the
fucking
protagonist?
day.
You know, so one of the benefits of morphing is that one may have ailments about your own body.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Dude, okay, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I was about to get this. The next point is morphing technology. One of the very helpful things about morphing technology is that when you morph back, all your injuries are healed.
Yes.
So if I had an Escafil device, this shit would be gone!
Oh, that's true.
As a side effect, a beneficial side effect for the author, that means that K.A. Applegate can write graphic descriptions of these kids
Incredibly!
being gruesomely disemboweled and dismembered. As long as they can morph before they die, they're fine.
Yeah. And this happens all the time. It's incredible.
I get the feeling that, that the alien ship crash landing and all that doesn't lead to many good things for these kids.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
No, it's
not.
gonna be a happy-go-lucky adventure.
They're gonna fight crime, the local bank's gonna
It's
get
a
robbed.
campy 90s romp, everybody.
It's a swashbuckling adventure
Especially
story.
with the
Funny enough, this was adapted into a cartoon or a live-action show on Nickelodeon.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Which was
But-
very dumbed down, which was a
Yeah.
real shame. I wanted to see disemboweled Alvin Gore right in the beginning.
Because like, the other thing we're not really having is like everyone could be pretending to be themselves and could be this is one of those things where everyone could be the villain.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, your whole family life is
Because the whole thing is, okay, so these kids now have to somehow figure out how to fight this advanced alien species, but they can't let on that they're aware of this going on. Like, their friends could be aliens. I mean, their friends could be Yerkes. Their family could be Yerkes. Like, anybody could be. So they have to keep it completely on the down low. And so, like, by day, they're just, like, going to school and trying to get homework done. And then by night, they're fighting aliens.
The only way to be sure that someone's not a controller is to monitor them constantly for 3 days, so you know that they never go to a pool.
So if you can monitor somebody for 3 days, they never go somewhere.
So they just like regularly test new people they meet, just like lock them down.
Throughout the series, they pretty much become loners and keep to themselves and become very paranoid about everyone and everything around them. Their psyches are irreversibly damaged. So,
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, it seems like morphing into a bear seems like so little to combat this interstellar really enough to make a difference.
Sure, the entire like planetary system is controlled by this invading force, but I can be
become a hawk.
I can be like a bird. I can be like a goldfish if I really want to.
Right.
Fascinating.
But you're a bear that, like, when you get bisected, as long as you morph back,
You'll be healed.
you can become another bear and do it again. So, the scales are
You can
balanced
be like a
a
lumbering
little
bear,
bit.
and then like a guiillotine, like slice your head off, and as your head is like you like morphs into a human, and you just hit the ground running.
This happens multiple times.
You've told me about there are even more terrible consequences of transforming, such as like doesn't your mind like slowly become like
yes.
the
You should explain.
I'm going to. Okay.
Tell us all about how
So,
the morphing
I
cube
just
works.
want to say before we move on, the themes of this story include the horrors of war, exploitation, child soldiers, slavery, sanity, freedom, morality, body horror, and the mental scarring veterans of war face during conflict and peacetime.
Yeah.
This is a series for
Yay,
kids.
woo!
I was 9 when I read these.
Yeah, future United States Marines.
Yeah, exactly.
Pipeline.
I recommended this series to my cousin, who was a year younger than me, and his mom said, I think this book was a little much. It had a couple swears in it, so I don't know about it.
If that's the worst you saw of it,
Yeah.
it says a lot about America, I guess.
American.
Okay, so let's get to the good stuff. What is this morphing and how does it work? Because it's not like magic. It's not like some magical, biological thing Andalites can do. It is a technology developed for the war, and it's a relatively recent invention by the time the war starts. It's only been around for like 10 or 15 years.
It's an iPhone 12.
Yeah, it's like an iPhone, but not
You
at
turn
all.
into a bear.
Yeah,
But a cube.
there's an app for that. Okay, so the way morphing works is that there are lots of like limitations and rules for how it functions, like any good sci-fi technology. You can only morph into an animal you've made physical contact with and focused on. Because what you're doing is you're actually absorbing its DNA and it's permanently becoming a part of you. So it only works with animals you've consciously decided to try and acquire, which is the term for it, after you've gotten the power. It's not like you pet your dog before, like you can just morph to it. It doesn't work like that. You have to consciously acquire these animals. Once you've done it, acquired an animal once, you can turn to it as many times as you want. So that is how that works. Yep. When you morph into something larger or smaller than yourself, the excess mass is either expunged into or acquired from zero space. So if I become a flea, all of my excess matter is jettisoned into zero space and held there temporarily until I revert back.
Held by what?
It's just in the void. There's nothing. It's anti-space.
How easy is it to track the place? Can you ever lose it in the void if you're not careful?
There is a mention where because ships also travel through zero space. If a ship impacts with your mass in zero space, you die.
Okay.
What is the likely, how big is zero?
Infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means it happens at some point in the series.
I imagine zero space is as big as regular space.
Yeah.
Or maybe bigger.
It's never gone into in depth, but it is vast. The odds of it happening are so incredibly small, so of course it happens to our main characters at some point. Also, if you become something bigger, it brings mass out of zero space. I'm not sure how that exactly works, but that's what it's called.
I was just gonna say, in Star Trek, when you replicate something, the subspace particles that exist all around us at all times are just formed into a thing.
Sure.
Sounds like a similar story.
Some mumbo jumbo. It's all good. It's fine. You can only stay as an animal for up to 2 hours. You have to consciously demorph back to your base form, or you are trapped in that form forever. That is what is called a nothlit in the Andalite language. If you're a nothlit, you're trapped in a morph. So every time they go on a mission, it has to be done in under 2 hours so they can demorph in a safe space, or they're all trapped in that form
That's
forever.
a real short window.
Yes, it is. Especially when you fucking have school all day, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's a tight fucking...
It's tomorrow.
It's a tight fucking schedule, guys! Alright. When you morph, you retain your sense of consciousness. So you're still yourself. But the animal's mind and instincts is also there in your brain with you. So the first time you morph, you have to battle for dominance with the instincts of the animal. Because if you don't, and you don't keep concentration while you're in the form, the animal instincts will take over, and you can lose yourself. And if you lose yourself, you can easily go past 2 hour limits and become a nothlit. So there are certain instances where animals they morph into with incredibly strong and rigid instincts basically makes them temporarily go insane as they desperately try to claw against their own minds to retain their sense of selves, which is one cool.
I think I remember that happening once with an ant.
Ants and termites are the worst ones.
Yeah.
There's I'm not going to talk about it here, but there's this one book where they all morph termites to sneak into somebody's house, and their minds are just completely taken over by the automatous nature of the termites, and they happen to have morphed into the wrong hive of termites and went into another hive, so they got all their limbs and shit ripped off and were dying and dissected and cut in half, and so they're demorphing quickly, screaming, and they break through the wall and fall out into the basement of the building, and they all are traumatized forever. And
are all their clothes held at the zero space as well?
Their clothes don't work. So in the beginning, whenever they demorph, they're all naked. They eventually, because Andalites don't wear clothes, so that was never taken into consideration with the morphing technology. They eventually find out if you're wearing skin-type things like leotards and whatnot, that can stay on you through the morphing process. And by the end of the series, they find out once you're like really practiced with morphing, you can do things like tight jeans and stuff as well. But for the most part, they're all like wearing leotards.
Imagine some motherfucker demorphing into a skin-tight pizza suit.
Yeah, very fucking.
Who would do that?
You
No
can
one I know.
You
Who
can
would be
morph in
crazy
style
enough?
if you're dedicated.
Yeah.
Be an epic practical joke on Mother's Day, bro. Well, hi, Mom. I'm in an international fucking conflict.
I sure hope I don't get hit by a battleship traveling
She
through deep
pulls
space.
out her shredder and blasts you because she's a controller.
An intergalactic.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but the massive benefit to morphing is that when you morph, any wounds that you had in your base form are healed once you revert that aren't genetic. So like if you have downs, you're screwed. But like, you know, if you like broke a leg, you can just morph into something, morph back, and you're fine.
I'm sorry. I was just like, what if you have something from way long when you were a young man, and then you got the technology to morph? Like maybe I literally lost my leg when I was 2 years old and lived without a leg, and then I morph back.
Comes back.
It comes back. Okay.
Yep, because it's based on your DNA, not on your physical
I was
body.
gonna say.
Do any of the main characters like have an ailment like that gets healed right at the start?
No, but there are some secondary characters that do.
Okay.
There's also it also works the other way. Like any injuries you sustain in morph, when you revert, go away, and they don't stay with the animal. Okay. This is how they get limbs bisected and cut in half and fucking disemboweled, all sorts of shit. Lots of graphic violence for kids.
Why?
Because war is bad. That's like the theme of this whole book, is that war is like the worst thing ever.
This is like 60 books of like little kids getting fucking PTSD from
that is the entire series. Nice. And so the last thing really that needs to be explained about morphing is that while you're in a morph, you can communicate telepathically like Andalites do, because obviously Andalites are telepathic, so they develop the technology so they can continue to have that skill when they're in morph. That's why it's great for reconnaissance and spying and things like that.
They built push to talk into the Morphing Cube. Yeah.
Exactly. Why wouldn't you? It just seems so convenient. Okay. So that is the general idea of Animorphs. Now we're going to start going through the chronologic storyline and everything that fucking happens and how these kids' lives are fucking ruined. So if anybody thought this was fucking lit and wants to go in, no spoilers, now is your time to ruin my ad revenue and leave. So,
I'll see you guys later.
No, you're all fucked.
I got some reading.
You have to stay here.
Audible.com/progress.
I know none of you guys will even fucking read books that aren't on Audible, which funny enough, these are being published on Audible right now.
Woo!
Yes. Audibletrial.com/Tommy Oliver if you want to get a free book. You get the first one.
Oh, there's a real link. Okay.
Do it. They're also, in October, there's a comic book adaptation coming out of the first book. And the guy's like apparently a huge fan of Animorphs, and if it sells well, I'm assuming that they'll probably do more, which would be pretty cool.
If it's good.
If it's good. I'm assuming it will be. Fingers crossed. He's like an Eisner-nominated comic artist, so.
Okay.
A little bit of credit. A little bit.
Might go.
That's a word I heard once.
Could be like a 6 out of 10. It's like the comic Oscar. Which means it's fucking worthless. Okay.
Oscar's too white. You know what I'm saying?
Shut the fuck up, Demerit. God. We're talking about
Can you
aliens.
believe that Parasite won Best Picture? How can Best Foreign Picture also be Best Picture? Doesn't make any
Speaking
sense.
of Parasite, the manga Parasite has a very similar plot to Animorphs, and somebody's probably typed that as a comment by now.
Look.
But Animorphs seems cooler.
Good, I'm
By
glad.
a lot.
All right, so before we dive in, I just want to kind of give a quick overview of the central characters of the story, so I don't have to explain them in line as we go through the books. The 5 main protagonists of Animorphs are Jake, Rachel, Cassie, Marco, and Tobias. So Jake is like... Tobias.
Tobuscus?
I did not have sexual relations with that
Chicken
woman.
and a biscuit, mashed potatoes.
Continue.
Demerits for everybody. I don't know why, but I just feel like giving one to everybody. All right, so Jake is the kind of reluctant leader of the group. He's characterized in the beginning of the series to kind of be like the most mature, I suppose, for his age. Everyone kind of describes him as a natural leader because
Red Ranger.
Yeah, he's like the Red Ranger.
He's an athlete, right?
But yeah, he's just like a normal kid. He plays basketball and shit, whatever. But he also plays video games and stuff. He's just a normal dude. He talks about Sega and Doom and stuff, but he also played basketball.
Fuck yeah, man.
Gamers rise up against the Yerkes infestation.
It's fucking, well, yeah, I mean, that's what they do. So he's kind of, I don't know, just kind of like a normal kid thrown into extraordinary situations.
He's Leonardo.
He's very Leonardo-esque. And he's also Rachel's cousin. And yeah.
Do they do it?
Oh, they do it.
I don't think
they don't do it.
I'm pretty sure.
Even though Rachel's catchphrase is "Let's do it," she says it.
Classic.
Every time they're about to go on some crazy suicide mission, she's like, "Okay, so Rachel is his cousin, but she's also like kind of like the most psychotic. Like everybody else gets kind of like really fucking depressed and like miserable. She just kind of like becomes more and more addicted to combat, and like that's how she deals
she's the
with things.
munchie.
She's sort of like
She's the munchie.
She's sort of like a yandere, or like
To a degree.
but not with like murder, but just with like war and like destroying her enemies.
Yeah, she's kind of got violent tendencies, and you know, that's just her way of dealing with these things.
She's like a
she's
pretty
also
blonde girl.
Yeah, she's described as like, you know, like unusually like pretty for her age, although she's very tall. She's like kind of like an Amazonian kind of character, you know, like a Wonder Woman-esque kind of thing, like attractive but will like fucking beat the shit out of you and like gives like you zero fucks, will destroy you.
I can defeat any woman.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna deny it. It's probably true. She's 13, dude. I hope you can kick her ass.
Easy.
Jesus Christ. Unless she turns into an elephant just to steamrolls you.
Wait, so can they turn into any? They can all turn into any animal.
No,
They have to acquire the morph. So like the more dangerous the animal is, the harder it is to get close to it and touch it
But
and
they
acquire
all
its
can acquire.
They all
any animal.
potentially
theoretically
can
they
turn
could.
into any animal.
Yeah.
So on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's Cassie. Cassie is kind of like the bleeding heart of the group. She's like the ethical
Come on, guys.
soul. Yeah, her and her family run like a wildlife reserve and like veterinary clinic,
Convenient.
which is very convenient for them because it allows them to get some initial morphs before they kind of you know, go and do more crazy things like break into zoos and fucking go transported to other planets and acquire crazy alien morphs and shit.
Oh shit.
It's fucking rad. Yeah, so she's pretty cool like that. The wildlife clinic eventually kind of becomes their pseudo home base. They do a lot of planning and preparation in that area because it's isolated from like the rest of society, so nobody will fucking bomb in on them and shit like that. She's also the most talented for morphing. Like usually when you morph, it's like horrendous and ugly and disgusting. It doesn't hurt, but you can feel your bones cracking and breaking and rearranging and your organs popping and like being sucked out into space and shit. But she can like purposely control how the morphing is done. So like there's one point in the books where she actually like demorphs from a bird but keeps the wings so she can like keep herself from crashing into the ground. She has like better control. And it's like something that like even Andalites can do, but it's very rare.
I remember a lot of the times with bird morphs in particular, the way that it starts is like the like hard bird feet. Your bones like explode out of your leg skin and like harden into talons, and your like skin is just like hanging.
They describe
off
this
shredded.
also in painful detail about how these like horrible abomination things are going on.
So is morphing painful?
It is not painful.
Okay.
But
it's weird. It's
very
uncomfortable.
fucking uncomfortable. Just like emotionally and psychologically, of like feeling like, oh, my heart stopped, but I'm not dead. Or like I just sprouted a second heart because this alien I'm morphing has two
my
hearts.
bones just ripped out
Right.
all of my skin.
Yeah,
They're
you know, like I'm
growing
morphing into like
new
an
skin.
octopus and all my bones are gone and I'm just writhing around as like a human puppet. So.
If you could morph to acquire a morph, you know, animal thing, you have to touch it. Is that all?
Pretty much. You touch it and focus for a
could
second.
You,
Takes
could
like a
you,
minute.
Could you morph into a Yerkes?
Yes, they do that at one point. Spoilers. I don't think I talked about it in here actually. That was kind of a filler book, but yes, they do.
If you're a Yerk, then do you have the ability to do what the Yerks do?
Yes, you do.
Presumably.
Yeah. There's a lot of like lines they don't cross for ethical reasons. Like they decide early on that they will not use their morphing power for pleasure, so like, you know, doing fun things. Like it's only for fighting against the Yerkes
That's just so that they
in personal games.
Yeah. I was
So
about to
that
say,
the
like,
author has
define
just
fun.
Completely sidestep the issue of will they fuck
Demerit.
up an animal.
Another thing they decide is they will not acquire any like being with intelligence without permission. Because you can morph into another human. Like I could touch Digi and become Digibro.
But will you not be my...
But why would you ever want to
Why
do
would you
something
want
like
to?
that?
You know, but yeah,
Wait, so you can become a specific person?
correct. Because when you morph,
you become the
specific animal.
Okay.
Not just
So if me and you both
become
acquired
that
the same like cat, we would be
But like in the process of morphing into me, would they then like have to struggle with like my mind versus?
It's just like human. I mean, because once you're used to the form and you know what's coming, it's not as difficult to deal with. So if you're a human morphing up, you know what to expect as a human. I would not gain your memories. I would just gain your physical appearance.
Oh, I do have one other question. Let's just say that I find like a really old man and I absorb his DNA, or whatever, and like I morph into him. Like, do I morph him as an old man, or like so it's whatever. Because I absorbed it when he was a child, but now he's an old man, but I still have morph.
You would still become the child.
Okay, all right, I got it.
So it's like the DNA in the condition it is when you acquire it.
What if you get the morphing power when you're a little kid, and you acquire another little kid, and then you get older, and like he's older, then can you like morph into him at like 2 different stages of his life?
Presumably.
You would morph into him at the age he was when you acquired him.
When you first acquired him.
What if he did it again?
So you would
later?
continue to turn into like 3-year-old him.
Yeah, can you reacquire the same person? Is what
it's never done in the series, but I would assume you probably could.
Okay. It's like a different set of data, so presumably.
Okay.
So there is like this weird like vision that Jake has way later in the series that I don't talk about here because it was mostly a filler book where he acquires an alternate reality version of himself when he's older. So he morphs into a 20-something-year-old version of himself from an alternate timeline.
That's fucked up.
It's pretty cool.
You just cast them into those alternate timelines now?
Yeah. It was a vision that was granted by the Krayak, which...
Is that gonna be?
Don't worry about the Krayak.
Are there gonna be alternate dimension changes?
So there isn't, in fact, any actual adventuring done in an alternate dimension.
Okay.
As a canon part of the story.
I mean, it's canon.
Okay.
But it's not like
important,
super relevant to the main
time
plot.
Travel and we're like changing.
Everything that happens in Animorphs is fucking sick. The problem is,
the problem is, sister, put down the weapon. My hands are raised.
The problem is, I don't have 45 hours to go through 62 novels, so I had to make some cuts.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of cool shit that happens. They go back in time and they acquire dinosaurs and become fucking dinosaurs. Okay. It's fucking cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Ben just left because he's a screw up. No,
he's not interesting.
I guess not. Okay, so we can just start getting into the plot now, I suppose.
Let's do it.
Unless you have a
No,
okay.
We're ready.
Cool.
I'm fucking strapped in, man.
So the first couple books, so book 1 through 12, picks up right where I kind of just left off, right? So Alvin Gore dies, gives him the power to morph. They watch Alvin Gore get like brutally murdered, and like the next day they're just like, shit, guys, what do we fucking do? This like is really fucking messed up, and they can't really talk about it. They can't really do anything about it. It's just like, we have to decide if we're going to actually fight or not. And they all kind of have like some arguments about it, and they kind of defer to Jake. Because again, Jake is seen to them as like kind of like the leader. And so it's like, Jake, we'll do whatever you want to do. And Jake is kind of leaning towards, like, this is like the ethically responsible thing to do. Like, this is like, you know, we've been given this responsibility, like with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing. But he's not really personally invested and doesn't really want to put everyone, all of his friends' lives in danger until he finds out that his brother, Tom, no relation, is a controller. Because Tom, before the book series begins, has been trying desperately to get him and his best friend Marco, which is the other character. I don't even think I finished talking about all the characters, so I'll probably get back to that in a second. But Marco is Marco is Jake's best friend. He's kind of like the comedic sort of guy. He's kind of a jokester. He takes everything kind of cynically, and he's like the Michelangelo, I guess you would say. The reason it's implied, the reason he kind of approaches everything with like a cynical kind of mindset is that a year before the book series starts, his mother died in a boating accident. He's still trying to getting over that. But Marco deduces that the sharing, which is like this like weird kind of like youth program that Tom was involved in, is a front for the Yerkes to recruit children and convince them to become controllers. Either doing it like willingly, because they're kind of like leeching off of
so the
kids.
Yerkes are like deeply integrated into our society.
Yes, at this point the Yerkes are deeply integrated into human society, and they've kind of decided instead of approaching an open warfare thing like they've done with the other races, they're doing it subtly because they are leveraging people's innate desire to belong to something bigger than themselves. And so the sharing is their way of kind of like manipulating people's emotionally to join them, either willingly or otherwise.
I was just curious for a little more detail on like what the pitch of the sharing is. Like, why would they want to join the sharing if you're just some asshole?
Well,
It's like a popular club.
yeah, it's like it's kind of they kind of prey on like the downtrodden of society. You know, it's like they go after like the emotionally vulnerable, like kids. You know, kids who kind of don't feel like they don't belong and they need somewhere to kind of be and shit like that. And so Tom is like he's like been in the sharing for a while. So this is when Jake realizes like, oh, my brother has not been my brother for like years now, and I just never realized it. So that kind of gives him like a personal stake in getting involved in this conflict.
I'm just curious, like, how long they've been on Earth, the Yerkes, doing this now.
They have been on Earth. We'll get to it more once we get to Visser, but just for they have been on Earth since the Gulf War. All right, what's up?
So wait, when a Yerk, oh no, this is morphing. I was thinking like, if he became his brother.
Yeah.
If Jake became his brother.
No. When the Yerk, the controller.
Yeah.
No, the controller is the host. Or is the controller the Yerk?
I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question.
Sorry.
Sure. Take your time. It's okay. There's a lot.
Tom is
Yep.
being controlled by a Yerk
Correct.
for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
But like his brother didn't realize for that long.
Yes.
So presumably the Yerk figured out how to act like this person.
Right, because when a Yerk wraps around your brain, he has access to all of your memories.
Okay, so
he knows exactly how to be you.
Okay, so
you are trapped. You're basically you have like another entity peeking into your mind, knows all your thoughts, all your memories, all your desires and dreams and shit.
Knows exactly.
And so
how
he can
pretend
leverage
to
that
be
to
you.
perfectly mimic how you would act. This is why they're really good at taking a species over, because they're very hard to detect.
Okay. I was getting confused with morphing where you don't know their memories.
Right.
Yeah.
Morphing is a technology, whereas
It's like copy paste.
yeah,
It's,
exactly.
It's different.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you're Visser 3, you can do both.
Yeah. Visser 3 is pretty good. That's why he's Visser 3. So there's like ranks in the Yerk armies, and there's sub-Vissers, Vissers, which are like the generals, and like the lower the number, the higher rank you are. So Visser 3 is like the third highest ranking Visser, and the only thing higher than that are the Council of 13, which is like the fucking like head honcho Yerks. And there's one that's the Emperor, but nobody knows who it is because they don't want him to get killed.
Is he one of the 13?
One of the 13
Okay.
is the Emperor, but it's not public knowledge because they fear assassination even from their own kind.
Sure.
We're good? We're
Yeah,
good?
we're good.
Good.
We're good.
Okay. So let's see. Before I go any further, the only character.
I think you didn't talk about all 5 of the dudes.
Right. Just finished talking about the only character I love to talk about is Tobias. Tobias is
My
like
favorite.
Tobias is
Love Tobias.
Tobias is great. He's like the emo loner kid who was like picked on and bullied at school, and he's like not friends with the other characters at the start of the series. Like Jake just met him like a few days ago because he was getting bullied, and Jake's like, "Hey, fucking stop that." And so like Tobias kind of like took to Jake, but they're not really friends at the start of the series. And like Tobias is kind of shown to be very kind of like empathic. Like one of the things that he does right from the beginning of the book that kind of separates him from everybody else is that when everyone else is running away because the fucking Yerk ships are coming to kill Alvin Gore, he like stays with Alvin Gore for a second, tries to like, you know, just like say goodbye properly, like calm him down and shit like that. There's like, he has like this weird bond with Alvin Gore. And
wait, Alvin Gore is still like alive on the ground after Visser is taken off?
No, this is
this is
ships
one.
going down.
Yeah, so
Tobias
like everyone else
doesn't leave
immediately bolts. They're like, oh god, more aliens. But Tobias stays with him and like tries to just like, you know, like kind of get some like closure or whatever with him. It's like it's weird. He's just like a very kind of sensitive kind of guy.
Attached right before he has to hear his screaming.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get like extra scarred for life.
And that's just the beginning.
Oh, that's
bullshit Tobias has to deal with.
He's definitely like punished Tobias like throughout the whole fucking series. It's pretty brutal. Anyways, so once Jake finds out that his brother is a controller, they also eventually find out that their principal Chapman, is also a controller. So the principal of their school. So while they're in school, they got to make sure they don't spill the beans, because their principal and assumably other teachers are all aliens as well. They're kind of trying to like infiltrate positions of like semi-authority because the Yerkes are still climbing the ladder as well. But So once they realize that like this shit is real, it's happening, and like we're involved whether we want to or not because it's around us now, they decide to take action. And so one of the first things they figure out is the location of the Yerke pool. So the Yerke pool is like, again, that portable Kandrona. It's not really portable, but it's like a Earth-based Kandrona pool where they go to feed and like replenish themselves every 3 days. And so if they can destroy this pool, they can do massive amounts of damage to the Yerkes because they will all start starving to death because they have no way of replenishing themselves. So they find a entrance to the Yerke pool under their school. So they decide to try and infiltrate it and do some damage. So they go to Cassie's place, they get some bird morphs and stuff, and then they go to the gardens, which is kind of like a zoo and stuff like that, and they acquire, through some happenstances, some battle morphs and stuff, some big animals that they use throughout the series. Jake's battle morph is usually a tiger, Rachel's is either an elephant or a grizzly bear, Cassie's a wolf, Marco's a giant fucking gorilla, and they just go to town. It's fucking cool.
And Tobias?
Tobias is, he's, battle morph is, he doesn't really have a battle morph. He usually is a red-tailed hawk. He does mostly recon. Okay. So he does like all that spying and stuff. He'll like, he's already kind of like displaced and like kind of like aloof. So instead of like being in the fray, he's like, I just want to be a bird and like fly around and like, he kind of expresses like interest in like birds because like the freedom of being able to fly and like, because his home life is already shitty. Like his parents are murdered, or they got murdered. He doesn't know what happened to his parents. He's like been shipped from like relative to relative, and none of his relatives like him. So he's just like, the freedom of being a bird and being able to escape from the bullshit that is to punish Tobias' life gives him a lot of comfort. And so he likes being a red-tailed hawk, and that's the form that he chooses a lot. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, like how many, like, are we still in book 1?
This is book 1.
This is like the first event, right?
This is book...
Like, these books are not very long.
They're not. They're like 150 pages, and the text is pretty big. Right. But there's 62 of them, and 8 of those books are like double that length. So there's a lot to get through. There's a lot that I cut from here. And I already realize I'm going pretty long, so I'm probably going to have to hurry this fucking along. So they decide to go attack the Yerke pool. They get their fucking battle morphs. Tobias goes in first as a red-tailed hawk to try and like scout the place out. Again, they all have telepathy, so they can thought speak and go in there, scout out what's going on. The Yerke pool is fucking huge, like massive, way bigger than they expected. It's like the size of a small city down there.
Holy shit.
And there's multiple entrances like all throughout the fucking city they're in. It's huge. They can't even like comprehend. So the idea of like, let's blow this up, no longer on the table. They realize immediately they're way in over their head. And the fucked up thing is that there's like tons of people screaming in cages and shit, but there's also people just chilling, watching TV. There's a bunch of willing controllers down there who are just like hanging out, having a good time.
Why the fuck would you be a willing controller?
Because people are fucking stupid, dude.
The Berserk orgy scene?
Yes.
Probably like that.
How is it like that?
Did you? If that's how you want to interpret it, who am I to argue?
Wait, they go into the cave
Some
and
people
all
just
the witches and shit having the giant like satanic orgy.
Yeah,
like,
some people just want to be on the winning team.
Yeah.
So these are like people who are like, okay, I understand we're being invaded by aliens. If I ally with them, I will receive some benefits. So I'm willing to deal with being possessed.
If your life is really fucking shitty, and these aliens offer you some deal, they can give you money. They can give you power, they can give you a better life.
Well, you can't use it if you're fucking possessed by a year.
Well, think about it. You can be in the background watching them do your life better than you could.
What is being a controller other than being on a live stream 24/7?
The only thing that perplexes me slightly is that it seems like there would be kind of, remember in Get Out, it seems like there'd be like physical discomfort of being in the backseat as someone else operates your body, and to live like that the vast majority of the time seems like it would be a very bad way to exist. But maybe that's
maybe
it's
just
better.
like your opinion.
That's
man.
okay.
But
That's
you
my
like
opinion.
being yourself.
I guess so.
Right.
I guess so. That's true.
It's like this. Brain 2020
Yeah.
or Yerke controller. That's what we're doing.
Okay. All right.
Milwaukee and the Yerke controller scene.
Burning your best.
Yeah.
All right. So huge fucking pool. They don't really know what to do. This is their first mission. They're super fucking green. They have no idea what they're doing. They fuck it up really bad. They try and like Cassie ends up getting captured. They like find like this random wolf walking around. They get pissed off about it, so they have to try to bomb it. Like stealth goes out the window immediately. Tobias just like hides up in a fucking corner because he's a hawk and he can't do anything. And like you can't like demorph in the middle of the thing. Because one of the things they decide to do after this book and like during this fight actually is that all the Yerkes assume that they're being attacked by Andalite bandits, because Andalites are the only ones who have this technology. They are not yet aware that human children have been given this power. So the kids decide to roll with this. They pretend to be Andalites by either saying nothing or talking in a way that would imply Andalite people and not children.
Right.
So through the vast majority of this entire series, everyone assumes that this is a rogue band of Andalites that survived the battle that happened above Earth that Alvin Gore died in, that are still continuing the fight. Because this gives them a huge advantage because they're not looking for humans with this power on Earth.
Right.
Which gives them the ability to stay on the down low. So they never demorph around anybody else because if they morph back to human, their cover is blown. So this is just another complication because like you can't just like demorph and remorph into something else. You have to kind of like be in a safe place to do so. So they get their shit fucking rocked. They all have to make a really embarrassing retreat. Jake goes there specifically to save his brother and is unable to do so and is really fucking pissed off about it. Tobias is unable to escape with everybody else. So they all escape. They're trying to find where Tobias is. He's just still in the Yerke pool trying to find a window to get out. And by the end of the book, he is trapped as a hawk. So through the rest of the entire series, Tobias is just a hawk.
He passes the 2-hour limit.
He passes the 2-hour limit, becomes a hawk Nothlit.
And can no longer morph.
More like a manlet. Jesus Christ.
Oh my
Piece of
god!
shit.
Immediately, I thought it was gonna be like just like for
Yeah, I thought that was
like covering your bases. Like if you go over the limit, then you turn that. But it never happens. Like it doesn't actually happen inside the book. No, immediately.
Immediately.
The first mission. Yeah.
It's also like implied as the series continues that Tobias might have done it on purpose because he hated his life so much and wanted an out.
Do we see his perspective? Like, is it just not really clear? I guess.
Every book is character's perspective.
Every book is written in first person from a different character.
Okay.
So the next book I'm going to talk about is actually from Tobias'
how
perspective.
likely do you think it is that like he did it on purpose versus just like retroactively is okay with it?
It's never made clear. It's left up to reader interpretation.
Sure.
Some characters, like some of the main characters, believe that he did it on purpose because as time goes on, he kind of starts really enjoying life as a hawk, which we'll talk about in a second.
I don't like the sound of that.
I remember that this.
I thought you weren't supposed
all
to get
the
any enjoyment out of your animal form.
Well,
I guess if you're stuck in it.
Yeah.
All the time, these books talk about like the joy of flying and the pleasure of finding like a good thermal updraft to like catch your wings on and soar on. It's like flying so fucking hard. It sucks. It's hard. It's like my muscles up, but then you get an updraft and you're like, just go.
Yeah.
Tobias lives for that shit.
He lives for finding good thermals. Like the whole. It's better than any high. You're going high instead of being high. But yeah, the whole reason that.
Every fucking book they go on about.
Well, the whole reason Kay Applegate wrote this, and I don't understand the logical through line between these 2 points, because she was asked at one point, "Why did you write this series?" And she's like, "Well, I just really like animals, and I wanted to communicate to kids how cool animals are." And so this was the vessel she decided to use. There's a huge leap in logic here that I don't exactly understand.
She knew where she wanted to go clearly, and all this was just justified. And she was like, "Oh fuck it, I put aliens and whatever."
Whoops! My whole fucking 70-book masterpiece is a big message about the perils of war and PTSD and trauma. Oops.
Featuring like giant leaps of logic in sci-fi technology that you have to constantly explain in zero space.
I just thought gorillas were neat.
I'm so delighted that this series about space travel, it did the bare bones of explaining how they travel faster than the speed of light. That's the first check mark to know this is somewhat legit sci-fi.
There is in the Andalite Chronicles, they actually, when they're talking about traveling from through zero space to Earth, or like they get out of zero space and they're saying like we could have gotten to Earth in a matter of hours, but because of relativity, if we went full sublight, because we were so close to the speed of light, years would have passed on Earth, and we don't want to do that. So they're even keeping that in mind in the book. Yeah, exactly. I was like, damn, someone watched Gunbuster. Hell yeah. So that was fucking cool. There's a lot of like little cool things like that. Anyways, so their first mission totally fucked up, bad. Yeah. You good?
It was a dab.
Oh,
not a hand grenade.
Okay.
Demerit.
You get off in that one time. I'll give you one. I'll give you one dab this entire lecture, and you used it. Okay. So Tobias is trapped as a honk. I know it happened. Fuck you. As soon as I said it, I'm like, there's no way that's going to stick. So Tobias, there's like a whole book from Tobias' perspective after this happens, dealing with being a hawk. And so it's kind of implied that, because like the next book where they talk about Tobias, it's been like a couple weeks since their first battle. They're like licking their wounds, like, Jesus fucking Christ, we almost died. Aliens are real. This is really fucked up. And so all this time, they're like, our friend Tobias is now just a fucking bird. How do we deal with this? So Tobias can't really go home. He's a bird. So he's just kind of living out in the woods. It's like, I guess I'll try and use this like hawk instinct sort of thing. And then like they kind of send him back and forth from some of their houses. Like Jake will like bring like a hamburger up for him to eat and like leave it on his windowsill. He'll come over and just like eat at it. But this whole time, the hawk instincts are still there. And so like he'll just be flying around. He'll notice a movement like there's a fucking mouse down there. I really want to fucking eat that mouse, but I can't, that's disgusting. I can't do that. I'm a human being. I'm not going to eat a mouse. Eventually, halfway through the book, he just breaks, eats a mouse, describes in vivid detail the absolute joy he gets of ripping into its intestines and pulling it out as the blood goes down his gullet, and he's so fucking happy he's eating this mouse. And he like has a psychotic breakdown. He goes to the mall in bird form because he's trapped as a bird, and slams into the fucking wall of the mall, attempting to kill himself because he is so fucked up.
Oh, God.
This is a book. This is the first book I read at night.
Jesus Christ.
And so his friends have to.
Tom is just like hashtag relatable.
Oh, absolutely. So
Damn.
Tobias is my boy, and this is the reason. I get where he's coming from. So like his friends have to like talk him out of it and shit like that. Like, dude, like it'll be okay. Like we'll find a way to like turn you back. This is super fucked up. But like, I don't fucking know. And so Tobias ends up deciding that like the only way to like latch onto his lingering humanity at this point is to continue the fight with his friends. That's the only thing that connects him to like anything more than just a normal hawk life at that point. Tobias is fucking sick. Okay, so the next thing is Axe. And so Axe is like the sixth fucking character that really gets introduced. And so Axe,
The Poochie of the group.
Absolutely.
oh my god, I can't deal with this right now.
Every time Axe isn't on screen, all the other characters should be asking, "Where's Axe? Where's Axe?"
I hate my life. So they find Axe. Axe is like, his full name is...
I know this. Aximilian Espion Fispin?
Aximili Esgarath Isthil.
Correct. Woo! He's Alvin Gore's younger brother. And they find out that, like... So there was a big battle that happened above Earth at the beginning of the book series. And Alvin Gore's fighter was shot down and he died. But they also have these big ships the Andalites have called dome ships. Because Andalites are like, you know, they're herbivores and they're grazers. They have to like run around across fields and stuff to eat. So their ships are like these big fucking battleships, but the top of them have these big domes that contain like a big field. It's like an artificial recreation of their home planet. And much like the Enterprise D, when battle happens, the dome separates from the other part of the ship. So the ship does battle while the dome takes off another place. And so Axe is a young Aeriths, which is a Aeriths. It's a fucking weird word. All of the Andalite words sound fucking weird because it's all thought speech.
I prefer Eris.
Yeah,
Shut the fuck up. I knew someone was going to say that. Two
It's
demerits.
occurred to me as well.
So he's the equivalent of a cadet. And because he's a cadet, he wasn't allowed to fight in the battle. He's really fucking salty about it. Because he doesn't know what happened to the rest of his people. He's just trapped underwater in this artificial dome. And is just like sending out like thought speech like, where are my bros at? Please help.
Underwater, he crash landed on Earth.
Yeah.
Is that right? So he's
okay.
the dome is crash landed
The
on
dome
Earth, and it's under the water.
It's under the ocean.
Fuck with your mic real quick. Not to derail.
No
Just
problem.
give it a little static.
Sorry, some underwater interference.
Oh, I better get another drink.
Making sure. I'm just doing it.
It don't take too long.
Better drink another dude.
Ben's already read all this. He knows.
Yeah, he knows it all.
I love this.
He thinks he knows everything about
Okay.
Aximilian Espion.
Aximili Esgroth.
Alright, get back down here, man.
Yeah, come on, we're going.
Okay. All right. So basically they have to morph dolphins. So they go to like the garden's equivalent of SeaWorld, acquire dolphins, and go out into the ocean to try and find Axe. Because he's like sending out thought speech like, Andalites, help please, I'm underwater. But Visser 3, the main bad guy, is also an Andalite. So he can hear this.
Shit.
So it's like a race to find Axe. So
this is in America, right? What state is this in?
It's kept intentionally vague throughout the majority of the series. It's talked about in the end. The reason it's kept vague is because all these books are written in first person, and they're written in the style of a journal. Like, this character is basically writing it to you, and the books always start out with, like, I can't tell you my last name. I can't tell you where I live, but they could find me. It's written in a way that it's like a character writing to you in the reality of the world that it takes place in. So you only know the character's first names.
And are we, as the readers, someone of importance? Are
No.
we, like the president?
It's just them keeping a journal, and like
Okay.
we don't technically exist in the world. They're writing as if we would pick it up at some point.
Okay.
So given that there are like, you know, different narrators between different books, like are they all reliable all the time?
Yeah.
Are there any like cases where like one character's story might differ from another's on like their recollection of the same event?
Not
or something like that?
nothing usually that complex.
Okay.
Might be a little too much.
They're still for 9-year-olds at the end of the day. Allegedly, yeah.
I just want to say, so when you say there was a battle above Earth, what exactly do you mean? Like, we have satellites.
Yeah.
We do have some connection to, like, a orbit. Like, would we be able to look up and see, like, a big blast of a laser beam or something?
Yerke and Andalite ships look at our technology and laugh at it. Like, there are multiple times where, like, the Andalites and Yerkes are just like, human satellites, super easy to fucking avoid detection.
Okay.
Like, we're fucking babies. It's like not even, there's just nothing you can do about it.
So are they, like, invisible to our technology? Or like,
Pretty much. I mean, some ships have, like, active cloaking. Most don't.
They're cloaked, okay.
But like they just can, they're designed in a way that like our radar can't detect them if they don't want to be.
Yeah.
Things like that.
It seems like the implications of this battle above Earth are making me curious. So Axe was present during that battle where
Elvin Gore.
where Elvin Gore got shot down. Were there many other Andalites also fighting in that battle?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
It was
implied
a battle.
that basically there was a battle that happened. The Yerkes won
Okay.
because the Andalites at this point have no presence on Earth. The Yerkes do. They've been here for years now.
So this is like an attempt by the Andalites to like try to gain some territory on Earth, perhaps.
Yes.
By fighting the Yerkes fleet that was there, and maybe they'd save them if they won or something. But they did not win.
They did not win.
Okay.
They lost pretty badly. It was a decisive victory for the Yerkes. This battle was. So, basically, long story short, they get under there, they find Axe, they free him, he kind of joins their team. He's like the 6th ranger of the group, as it were.
But he's like a giant centaur man.
He's a giant centaur man. So
does he morph into a human?
Scorpion tail.
he does. What he does is there's like a thing you can do where it's like an advanced morphing technique. But if like I acquired Gib, Nate, and you all in like quick succession, I can like mix your DNA into a unique form and become somebody completely new.
Can you morph different animals, like 2 different animals? And
I'm assuming.
Oh god, could you become like a half tiger, half elephant?
I don't think it works with cross species. I think you're taking samples
otherwise it
of
would
a
definitely happen.
That would be
right.
sick.
It would be fucking
No way
lit.
it wouldn't have happened.
If he got the DNA from Rachel, there's 2 girls and 2 boys. Is he a boy or is he a girl?
He's
some
described
combination.
as an effeminate-looking guy.
Oh, okay.
Very progressive.
Indeed.
He
He's off
uses
the binary.
they/them pronouns.
If it's
Not really. It's a little too early for that. But if it was written now, probably.
Does he go by he or she? I'm just curious.
He goes by he
Well,
because
he's
okay.
a boy.
as an Andalite.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Sure.
You good?
We're good.
Okay. So, just some cool things we'll talk about Axes. It's not going to come up in the series. Axe is like enamored by taste because when he's in human form, like Andalites don't have a sense of taste. They just absorb nutrients from plant life and grass mostly through their hooves. So when he becomes a human, he is like fascinated with making like mouth noises because it's not something completely alien to him. So he talks like an idiot. He's trying to figure out how to speak. And like he's fascinated by food and he'll put things in his mouth that aren't food just because he wants to see what it tastes like.
Gross.
It's really dumb.
This
he's
dick, bro.
He has decided that cigarette butts taste good. That's one of the things he decided that he liked. But his number one favorite thing is cinnamon buns. He loses his fucking shit whenever he has cinnamon buns, and it's like a meme throughout the entire series.
That's adorable.
That it's
That's
like,
so
all right, this
cool.
battle's over, and Axe is like, I want cinnamon buns. I'm like, all right, Axe, we'll go to the mall and get you some cinnamon buns.
He goes on at least one actual wild rampage through the mall.
Yes,
right?
the first time he, you know how like they morphed into termites and went ape shit.
Yeah.
Axe morphed human, had a cinnamon bun, and went ape shit. Like they had to leave the mall because
his human craving for cinnamon buns just drove him to tear the place apart.
But unironically, yes, that is what happened. It's hilarious. There's one book where he actually gets a part-time job at the Cinnabon because he just wants access to cinnamon buns, and they're just the guy that tells him just clean off the tables, and he assumes that means lick up the crumbs with his tongue, and just goes full spurg. It's amazing. The way these books are usually structured is that the first chapter or two is funny shenanigans, brutal war for the rest of the book. It's tonal shift. You're whoa! And that's every book. That's how it works. It's this was cute. It's not cute anymore. So that's kind of Axe.
Oh, I'm so endeared to these characters. Oh God!
Oh God! They just hacked an arm off.
Oh, their veins are exploding.
It's really good. It's a bait and switch of epic proportions. So that's Axe. He's cool. He's my second favorite character. He's constantly torn throughout the series of his allegiance to his people versus helping his friends on Earth. Because his people look down on humans. They're fucking babies. Yeah. So his kind of arc throughout the series is realizing that we're kind of not total bullshit. He's also really smart with computers and shit because he's advanced technology. He can hack into anything and stuff like that. Becomes very plot important for him.
He spends a lot of time on hackertyper.com.
Oh yeah, of course. But he kind of him and Tobias become really good friends because they're both kind of displaced from the rest of society. And so Tobias ends up living out in the woods. He makes little claims a little fucking field or something out there. And Axe kind of lives right outside because Andalites have these little homes they call scoops, which is kind of a small field of grass. They hate being confined in spaces and stuff. So they live really close to each other behind Cassie's wildlife clinic. So they become bros, which is pretty fucking cool. Okay. Another good thing about Axe is that every Aerith has to have a prince. A prince is not a royalty rank. It's a rank in the military. There's the cadet, then there's a prince, there's a war prince, and a captain. When you're a captain, you get your own ship, and that's the highest rank you can get in the military.
Is that what Alvin Gore was?
Alvin Gore was a prince. He was not a war prince, and he was not a captain. He was just a prince. But he was a highly decorated prince because he had lots of very important victories in the war up until when he died. So Axe's kind of motivation at the beginning of the books is to live up to his brother's legacy and kind of step out of his shadow because he's still a little kid and doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. So because he doesn't have a prince anymore, he refers to Jake, the leader, as Prince Jake, much to Jake's displeasure. So the bit all the time is he'll be yes, Prince Jake, and Jake will be just call me Jake. Yes, Prince Jake. He will not. He refuses to do it.
How wacky and charming.
Yeah, it's just one of those little things.
I'm realizing that this is a light novel in every way.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, have you seen one? It's this thin. The print is huge.
It's just funny because light novels are marketed a little older, but
this
is a light novel.
These are translated into Japanese. They have hand-illustrated covers instead of the CGI ones, nightmares. And they are interspersed with illustrations of the scenes happening, just like a light novel.
That sounds
Makes way more sense than
really sick.
They look pretty cool. It's so much more aesthetic than the US covers, and I was really sad about it. I tweeted about it if you want to see one. Okay, so the next thing we need to talk about is Visser 1. So Visser 1 is the highest ranked Yerke outside of the Council of 13. So the head boss of the Yerkes and the leader of the invasion on Earth ends up coming back to Earth to check up on what the fuck is going on.
Visser 3 is basically the guy in charge of the Earth invasion.
He's in charge of the Earth invasion, but Visser 1 is the one who started the invasion. Kind of Visser 3's job is to kind of carry on while they're out doing other stuff.
So just to check, so Visser 1 is the head of like the entire Yerkes society.
Well,
not just
he's under the count. He outranks Visser 3.
Oh, except
but the council is the
The
highest.
council is like the head honcho.
I was just saying,
So
it's
it's kind of like Visser 1 comes, invades, goes on to invade somewhere else, leaves Visser.
Essentially.
It's interesting to note that like I'm curious at the scale of the conflict here. 'Cause these are intergalactic battles going on.
We'll get to it like in more detail around here, but just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on at this point, the Yerkes are the underdogs in this fight. The Andalites are, there's far more of them. They have better technology because they've been a spacefaring species for much longer. And again, the Yerkes naturally are slugs. So they're completely reliant on enslaving other species in order to have any sort of like fighting chance against anybody. There's only
it's just that they so happen to have just now found the perfect thing.
correct.
To
The reason Earth is so good is if they capture Earth, they outnumber the Andalites significantly. Because we're basically the shock troopers that would carry them through to victory in this war.
But like a human is no match for like an Andalite or a Hork-Bishop or a Taxon in combat.
As we find out in the Chronicles books, billions of people on a planet is not common. Right. When they stumble upon Earth and like they report back, we found Earth. There are 5 billion people, and they're like, million people. No, billion, and they all collectively nut because like that's like a gold mine.
I guess I'll ask this sci-fi-esque question. It's like, okay, if you're capable of like faster than light travel and stuff, you would think that at a certain point, like simply manpower, even if it's in the billions, wouldn't hold a candle to like, for example, just a ship's ability to travel faster than the speed of light. Like that, you could use that as a weapon, for example, to like detonate a planet potentially, which seems like it would outweigh just a billion extra troops on one particular planet.
Well,
is that not the case?
Sure, but you have to understand the motivation for the Yerkes is just to have bodies.
Yeah,
okay.
Because
that's the bottleneck. Because like there's plenty of Yerkes on the Yerkland planet, but
they have no bodies.
Yeah.
They're blind. They have like no capacity to do anything. Their end goal, the only reason they want to enslave is because they want bodies.
Yeah. Okay. And I was going to say, I thought it was a little strange that like if this is intergalactic and presumably there's thousands, maybe millions of planets trying to be conquered. I guess the scale is actually lower than that because there's only like a billion of these.
This is the only Class 5 species the Yerkes have ever encountered, and as we'll find out in Visser, it took years to even find this planet.
So it makes sense why their literal top people are on top of this.
Yes.
This is the key to victory.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not in victory, but like just like thriving as a species.
Sure. Okay.
Because at this point, they've only been spacefaring for a few decades.
Right.
They stole all this technology. It is not something that
So this is a fucking meteoric rise.
Exactly.
To greatness as a species.
Huge.
Okay.
Is there any reason that the Andalites don't just end Earth to get rid of this problem?
They're too big pussies.
Andalites are like good, and they wouldn't like genocide a whole people. They're good boys.
I mean, would they if it
like
came
I
down
said,
to
maybe.
pussies.
I think. Am I right?
If it came down
Okay, he's looking at me significantly. Maybe
We'll get to it.
read enough of the books.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
All right.
All right.
Don't
So
listen to me.
it's all good. All right.
You're in for an and of fright. my
Sounds
friend.
like I might be thinking like a certain Andalite.
Yeah.
So Visser 1 comes back to check up on their pet project.
Is Visser 1 in a Hork-Bajir?
No.
What's he in?
I will get to it. It's plot.
Okay.
It's plot important for this.
This is like
All right.
this is crucial to me. I want to know what body everyone's got.
Sure.
Okay.
So Visser 3 is an Andalite.
Right.
Everybody else is in their own body. That's the only Yerk that matters so far that we've really talked about. So Visser 1 comes to Earth, and Axe is trying to... At this point, he is like tentatively working with the Animorphs, but he does not like want to stay here long term. His goal is to get back to his people, get out of the war. You know, he's got his own shit going on. He wants to rejoin the war effort. This is like a personal conflict for him and also most of his people. So he tries to create a transponder to contact his people and get back into the war. Yep. Let me just make sure I got the sequence of events proper. Okay, so this is like a couple weeks after. There's a couple books in between here that I kind of left out. So they've had a couple small skirmishes with Visser 3 and shit like that. And at this point, this particular part of the story is told from Marco's perspective, and he's sick of the war. The reason he's sick of the war is that his father, who's still reeling over the loss of his wife and Marco's mother, he doesn't want to be killed because they've had a lot of close calls already, and leave his father alone. And so he's kind of weighing his options and is like, I would much prefer walking away from this and staying with my dad than having to have him, quote, visit 2 graves.
Did you already explain what killed Marco's mom? Did I miss that?
She was killed in like a
boating accident.
It was a boating accident.
Not Yerke related.
No, a year before the series, she was killed in a boating accident.
Okay.
And that's why he's adopted like a joking, comedic, cynical perspective in order to deal with the trauma of losing his mom.
You said that they're going on missions. I'm just curious. So now that they know they can't just destroy the pool, the Yerke pool or whatever. So like, what is their goal? Is it to save individuals from the Yerkes, or
their goals is basically just be a thorn in their side in any way possible? Because what they're waiting for is that Axe kind of lets them know that like there should be more Andalites coming to save you guys.
Okay.
It will take some time, and he estimates that like reinforcements could arrive naturally in maybe like a year or so.
Okay. That's
So for
reasonable time
the majority of the series, they're trying to basically just cause as much problems for them as possible, stalling until the Andalites come and bail them out of this.
Okay.
And that's kind of the premise for a lot of the series.
Okay.
So Marco is just like, as important as this fight is, and as bad as I feel about leaving my friends, my dad is too important, and I can't take the risk. Because in the beginning of this book, he almost dies in like one of the fights, and he's just like, I can't do this. I've been disemboweled as a gorilla again. This is fucking ridiculous.
There's one time too many.
Yeah, there's only so many times you can go through that. So he's like, fuck it, I'm not doing this. This mission we're on to fuck with Visser 1 is the last one I'm on, and then I'm done. So they go and find out, they are going to help Axe create this transponder.
And Visser 1 is his dad.
We'll get to it. So they go and try and create this transponder so Axe can contact his people to hopefully expedite the arrival of the Andalites to help them. And this would be his last mission. And so they meet Visser 1 here because they sent out a signal. They wanted to basically capture a Yerke fighter, then use the communications array on the fighter to contact the Andalites.
A fighter ship.
A fighter is a ship, like a fighter ship, like a Yerke fighter. They're called bug fighters. I think it's like not actually what they're called, it's like the name that the Andalites gave them. A bug fighter, use the communications in there, contact the Andalites, and get either Axe off-world so he can get his people or have them come to them. And I guess Visser 3 and Visser 1 figure out that this is a ploy and capture them. They basically set a trap inside of the trap. And so they're all captured, and they bring them to Visser 1. They're all still in Morph. They are now like, fuck, we need to get out of here. We only have a couple hours before we're all trapped. Or we could just be fucking murdered before that even happens. So we have 2 problems to worry about at the same time. And so they meet Visser 1, and Visser 1 is Marco's mom.
Oh!
Okay. Yes, Marco's mom is still alive and is the leader of the fucking Yerkes right now.
Oh, no.
So he's fucking really pissed about this for obvious reasons. And now he's back in the game. He's like, all right.
It's like his mom's being raped constantly every day.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
For some people
This is just like that scene in Berserk where fucking Guts is like trapped and like Casca's getting raped, but it's like his mom under like control, and he's like raging. So he's pretty fucking pissed about this. So the interesting thing here we learned though is that Visser 1 and Visser 3 fucking hate each other. They both have different visions for how this invasion should be going. Visser 1 is all about like tact and subtlety and like manipulating the situation by like using the sharing and just kind of like silently ideally Visser 1 would like to take over the entire planet without firing a shot. Because like we're just like gullible and manipulative and primitive, but we have numbers. The biggest problem with the Yerkes right now is they don't have numbers. Every casualty is a big deal because that's a body they don't have an easy way to replace. Okay. So if they can do this subtly, that's good for them.
I'm just curious, where's Visser 2?
Visser 2 does not come into play until way fuck later.
Okay, so just doing something else.
He's just they're kind of
there's a lot of Vissers.
There's
we're talking about 1, 2, and 3. These are the big boys. I'm just curious.
Visser 2, he comes in later in the series, but he's still only a minor character. I don't even think I'll be talking about him.
That's fine. All right. Okay.
But he does eventually show up for a little bit.
What body does he have?
He's just a human.
Pussy.
Sorry.
Is someone's dad? Someone's mom? Give me something.
He's like a general in like the fucking U.S. military.
That's not bad. All right. Okay.
So they have a whole.
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
That's why the
Jack.
Yerk in Biden's brain just hasn't got enough control race. He's fucking
Jack,
dying.
how do I absorb corona?
We cracked the code, guys. Okay. So Marco's fucking pissed off, and now he's back in the game. And but like, Visser 1 and Visser 3 do not like each other, right? Because Visser 1 is all about subtlety. Visser 3 is just like, I want to just beat the fuck out of people. He's a conqueror. He's like, we fucking conquered the Taxons. We conquered the Hork-Bajir. We're gonna conquer these primitive monkeys. Let's just fucking end this. Let's just fucking kill them. So we kill a few billion of them. There's more. It doesn't fucking matter. Let's just steamroll them.
I mean, I see your shirt and all, but Visser 3 sounds like kind of a piece of shit.
He does.
Propaganda from me. He's the best.
Okay, alright.
He's so fucking cool. Come on, he's the only one who's able to get an Andalite body. That's gotta count for something.
I mean, I'll give him that.
He fucking hit the bourgeois where it hurts, man.
At the end of World War II, we actually saved lives by nuking Japan because then we didn't have to have a ground game, and they just surrendered. Similar tactics. Perhaps this is the logic. I look forward to finding out.
All right.
Here we go.
Don't think about it too much.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
clearly,
Yes,
Visser 3
Professor.
did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I keep seeing that, so...
And I keep believing it.
Okay. So, just to kind of mention quickly because it's cool, it doesn't have a super lot of plot relevance. Temrash 114. This is a name of a Yerk. This is how Yerk names are. Visser 3's name is Esplin 9466, I believe. They all have names like that.
Is
It's
that
like
the name of their pool?
Yeah, it's like the pool. It's the first name I believe is the pool they came from on the planet, and then the number here is like the order they were like born in that pool.
Sure.
So Temrash 114 is a Yerk that actually ends up infesting Jake. So
Oh,
Jake,
shit.
there's a book where Jake becomes a controller,
That's not good.
which is bad because Jake now the Yerks know everything about him. So luckily at this point, the Axe is able to figure out that he's a controller because like when they first demorph, the Yerk kind of like sees Axe and Andalite, like reacts viscerally, like angry, like fucking gross because they hate fucking Andalites. They call them Andalite filth all the time. They're pieces of shit. So they figure out that he's a controller, and the interesting thing is that Temrash was originally the Yerk that was inside Tom. But his brother.
Yeah.
So he has a bunch of Tom's memories that he can see, and he finds out that like Tom has been like desperately pleading with the Yerks that have been in his head to not hurt his family. He's been trying to wheel and deal him like, you can control me as much as you want, just please don't hurt my brother. My brother means so much to me. And they're like, no, fuck you. And so Jake's all fucking pissed off about that. They figure him out though. They keep him trapped behind the wildlife reserve with like everybody. They're monitoring him like 24/7. The Yerk now can morph. So multiple times he morphs different boars and tries to bomb out.
The Yerk... because it's in Jake's
The
body.
Yerk can use Jake's body to morph.
I was gonna say, like, it seems odd that he can morph, but the Yerk is like inside his head.
Imagine if the Yerk itself could morph, and it morphed into like an elephant in your skull.
I mean, if you give the Yerk ability to morph, it could. But like there is a point where the Yerk tries to morph a flea to escape, and when he tries to do it, he like starts killing himself because the flea's too small. The Yerk just stays, so he's limited to certain forms he can do.
Right.
Oh, okay. When you say the Yerk, do you mean
The one in
The one
okay.
in Jake's
The one in Jake.
Which was also the one in Tom's head.
Which wasn't Tom.
The other, not this Tom.
So Temrash knows that Jake is a big deal and that there's an Andalite, but it does not like the entire Yerk species. Now.
Correct.
Okay. So
This is why it's so important to keep them away.
Right,
Because if he contacts them, everybody knows the jig is up and they're all fucked.
Cool.
So is there a horrific scene where they've got this Yerk infested in Jake's brain, captured, and they watch him sit there for 3 days and slowly starve and die?
Yes.
That sounds fucked up, man.
Cool.
So like there's a point where like the Yerk just basically starts going insane because like Kendrona death is like how you kill like the worst traitors in the
put a
species.
gun to Jake's head and be like, let me out or I'll fucking kill Jake. Yeah.
I mean he wanted to live,
He's
dude.
too pussy. He's too pussy to do it, I can tell.
So yeah, he basically just like the Yerk dies painfully and like falls out of his skull and just like dies and
Dude, what an
screaming
interesting
and dying.
scenario. Like, imagine you are intentionally starving a voice inside your head, and I'm sure it's trying to bargain with you to
Right.
not let it die.
It does. It does all that stuff. It's like trying to like help him. Like I'll take.
I imagine it goes through the 5 stages of grief,
I'll-
like right in front of them, as it like tries
It's super.
to plead
It's
for
super
its
fucked up.
life.
And like as he dies, like the like because it's like wrapped around his brain, like Jake starts seeing like visions of like his previous hosts and like its memories and stuff. Because like the synapses are connected.
This is so cool.
And totally fucks with. And again, more mental damage.
Yeah.
But this means Tom is free now, right?
Tom is not free. Tom has been reinfested with a
Different
lower
Yerk.
ranked Yerk.
Oh, bummer.
Because he was promoted, so he was going to get a better body. But the reason he got infested is because they uncovered a plot that they took over a hospital. So every patient that came into the hospital, they were going to secretly infect with a Yerk. And so they went to go destroy the hospital, but Jake actually fell into the Yerk pool by accident during the fight, and it crawled into his ear in a tiger form. And then he demorphed back to human, and nobody realized for a while. Fucked up. Okay. So, I don't know. That was just pretty cool. Fucking cool.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Fucking dope. All right. So next up is the Ellimist, who's fucking rad.
I read that book.
The Amish Chronicles, I'm not even going to go over it here, but it's fucking cool. It's a fucking cool book.
It is.
So the Ellimist is a kind of like god being in this world.
Cool. All right.
So this book starts is that they discover another entrance to the Yerk pool, because there's entrances to the Yerk pool all over the city. And so Tobias, because he's a hawk, what he does usually while they're in school is he'll fly around doing recon, trying to like find people who are commonly coming in and out of places, trying to find locations to enter the Yerk pool, because the Yerk pool is the key to fucking these guys over. The more damage they can do to that, the better. So he finds another entrance. I believe it was in the Gap. There was like a changing room that they could get into the Gap and fucking.
Changing room? Okay.
Yeah. There was another. They found another one in a McDonald's. You have to order a specific item. And they'll take you behind the counter into the Yerk pool. It's funny. It's cool. So they go down there, and they sneak in through cockroach morphs. So they're tiny little bugs, and they're trying to just like sneak pack and get in there. And they're found by a Taxon and are eaten. This Taxon just fucking eats them all. They're getting digested, and all of a sudden time stops. Okay, time fucking stops. And they're all of a sudden all demorphed. Tobias is now a human again, and they're in this like weird cafeteria where all these controllers were inside the Yerk pool, but no one is moving. Time is completely frozen. And they're approached by this old wizardy guy called the Ellimist. And he's basically a god. He's like this super advanced, he's like the Q, but like better. He's like a super Q. He's super fucking stoked. And he's an omnipotent like god being. And for reasons we'll get into later, he cannot directly interfere with things, or is like not supposed to be directly interfering with stuff. And he tries to make a bargain with the Animorphs. He's like, you guys are going to lose. The Earth is going to be destroyed. The Yerkes are going to win. But there is culture here that should be preserved. If you would like, I will remove you from this like time-space thing, and I'll bring you to another corner of the galaxy with yourself, your family, and a select other people and species of animals on the planet to preserve your culture, and everyone else will just die. Or you can stay here and continue the fight, but things will go back to the way they were. You'll be inside a Taxon. It'll be up to you to figure it out.
Oh god, so they'll really be right back in that situation.
Right.
Oh.
So he makes this deal with them. He's like, presents this option. And they're kind of like not really sure how to fucking process this, because God is basically talking to them for all intents and
you just told
purposes.
them you will lose. It's
Yes.
a guarantee.
You will
Okay,
lose this.
Now that this is on the table,
Yeah.
something big has to happen.
Yeah.
for this to go a
Yo,
different
what
way.
the fuck?
Alright. Okay. That really derailed all this whole operation. When God told us.
I thought they were going to be trying to find jawbreakers in the cul-de-sac when I looked at the fucking cover of this book. I thought they were going to be teaming up with fucking the police
I
to
forgive
shoot
you.
criminals.
It's okay.
Thank you.
So they decline the offer because they don't want to leave everybody else to die just to save themselves. So time was reverted. They're back in the Taxon, and they kind of were looking around, and they noticed like an escape path that they could use. There's like this weird like alien elevator shaft that they noticed that they could kind of like, if they can get out of the Taxon, they can beeline it over there and quickly make an escape, because they're being surrounded and shit. They totally fucked up this plan to take down the Yerk pool again. And so they do that and they leave. Okay. Yep. They do that. God, I forget how. There's a second time that the Ellimist approaches them later during peacetime. Why is like there a pissing sound over there?
The water drips sporadically in that room. It's part of the tropical theme.
Oh.
Very tropical indeed.
So the Ellimist appears before them again later after the battle, a significant time after the battle, and basically presents them with the offer again, now that they've been totally fucking demoralized with this another crushing defeat. And this time they accept. They're like, okay, this is pretty fucked, but we're going to accept this offer. And they do. Like, they're shown a future from the Ellimist of, like, this is what Earth is going to look like if you don't take this deal. And it's just like, the entire city's destroyed. There's this big fucking spire where, like, the main central building in their town, their, like, city was. And it has this big fucking Kentrona generator. And Visser 3 is, like, laughing. He's, like, taking over everything. It's like a fucking hellscape. Like, they have totally won. And so, in light of seeing, like, everything destroyed and their efforts being in vain, they accept the deal. And so the vision fades and nothing has changed. Everything is still as it was. And they're confused. They're like, we accepted God's offer and he did not let us do anything. And so they eventually realized, though, that, like, the tower had, like, some significance in this vision. And they're like, maybe this is, like, something significant we should look into. If this place, because, like, again, there's a vision of the future of the place they're in right now. And so they're like, we've been looking for, like, their Kendrona generator that gives the pool power. It looks like that's an important place. Maybe we'll go up there. And so they go up there. They have a brutal fucking battle. They get, like, eviscerated and gored and fucking die. But they find the Kendrona generator there and destroy it.
In a tower that was built in their town?
Yeah, it's just like a big skyscraper building. But, like, in the vision, the skyscraper had been retrofitted and, like, there's a big Kendrona because there's big pools and everything all over the place. Okay. And so they eventually figure out that the Ellimist never was going to offer them this deal in the first place. These visions were a way of him giving them information they needed to find this location without directly interfering. It's like he just plays games with them the whole time, right? The Ellimist, fucking cool.
Okay.
He's fucking dumb.
Does he like totally neutral, or does he have like a bias? Does he care which side
he does
he
have a bias. The Ellimist's goal is that he wants to sustain life, whereas his foil, the Krayak, which we'll get to later, wants to destroy it. And so they kind of play this eternal game with each other, trying to, like, manipulate species into doing their bidding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So they do this thing with God. It's pretty badass. Okay.
Do that every Sunday.
Next up, we're going to talk about is Ciro's kindness. This is one of the most important concepts in the entire book, or in the entire series. So this is a book that's mostly told through Axe's perspective. And so they've destroyed this Kendrona. And the Yerkes can repair it eventually. But in the meantime, the Yerk pool it's still, like, standing, but without getting the Kendrona rays, it makes it functionally useless. So Yerkes start dying.
Damn.
And they start dying in public because, like, they're just starving, trying to function as best they can. But again, like Jake, they had a fucking conniption fit. They're just people having conniption fits, just out in public. And everyone's fucking stoked because they're like, holy shit, this is going to blow the doors wide open on this whole fucking invasion. There are people, like, screaming about being controlled by Yerkes and stuff. This is the best. Like, they're in class and their teacher just starts having a fucking seizure because it's been their teacher was in control. Like, I guess they were a controller. That's fucking weird. And Axe is just, like, depressed because he knows he's seen this tactic be done before, and none of these people are going to survive. Sure. They're all going to be quietly killed. And so this is, like, where some ethical ambiguity starts to develop in this book series, because up until this point, the Animorphs are the good guys, the Andalites are the good guys, the Yerkes are the bad guys. But now they find out this big devastating blow that they've caused to the Yerkes is going to result in thousands of innocent human deaths. Sure. Because as all these Yerkes starve, the hosts are going to be killed to keep them quiet.
I just have one general question. Are there many pools across the entire planet? Is this the only one on Earth?
This is the only one on Earth right now.
Okay, all right.
The invasion, we'll get to it in Visser more, but just for the sake of answering the question, they when they first land on Earth, they realize that America is, like, the most powerful military power.
Yeah.
So they decide
MAGA.
Taking over America first is the right way to go.
America first. You said it right there, brother.
You bet. USA.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is, like, a big blow to the Yerkes. but they're causing a lot of collateral damage that if they had known was going to happen, they might have not done it.
Luckily, that ethical thing wasn't on the table for them. They didn't know,
Right.
so there's no need to
But
feel bad
Axe
about it.
did know and didn't tell them because he would rather deal a blow to the Yerkes and have this side effect to a lesser species he doesn't really care about as much right now.
Straight up racist, dog.
So
That's not cool, man.
So he's just like, yeah, that's fine. And he says straight up to Jake, I knew about it, but I knew if I told you, you wouldn't go through with the plan. And I wanted the plan done, so I said nothing. And he's like, why? Like, why don't you trust us? Why don't you talk to us? And he's like, I can't, because it's against the law of Ciro's kindness. I cannot reveal any information about Andalite technology or knowledge to lesser species.
That's fucking the prime fucking directive from Star Trek.
Exactly.
Right there, motherfucker.
There's a lot of Star Trek analogies
There
in this
is.
series.
There is.
You can tell Applegate's a fan.
She knows what the fuck is up.
So
What is Ciro's kindness?
we'll get into it.
Right.
I'm getting into it. So there's kind of like a schism between Axe and the rest of the group at this point because they realize like you just like caused a bunch of our people to die and didn't tell us. And he's like, it's for the greater good. The Yerkes are fucking evil. And so he kind of like breaks off from the group for a while. And he tries to go after Visser 3 because he ends up finding a way to contact his people and tell them what's happening. And they're basically like, yeah, we're still going to be a while. We have other shit going on. But what happened to Alvin Gore? He's like, well, Alvin Gore died. He was killed by Visser 3. He's like, okay, he's dead. And like, what happened? He's like, well, he gave these humans the morphing technology, and I've been fighting with them. He's like, well, that was against Ciro's kindness. That's the biggest law that he broke. But he is a national like legend. We can't have his image be tarnished. You were the one who did it. You're responsible because you're just a cadet. We don't care about your image. You're going to take the public blame for this. Also, another law of our people is that you are now legally obligated to kill Visser 3 and get revenge on your brother.
Sick.
So it's your job now to go fucking murder him. So go do that. So he actually is then contacted by a Yerke who he had, because he goes and like attacks this like, this Yerke place by himself to kind of get another communicator to fucking contact his people. And this Yerke actually doesn't want to fight him. He's like, so here's what's going down. I want to help you, Axe. And the reason I want to help you is because now that our Kandrona is fucked, we are now rationing what portable Kandronas we have left. Because they have little tiny ones they can bring with them. And it's not enough to feed everybody. So they're rationing it. And Visser 3 is deciding, unimportant Yerkes, you get to die. So the more important people can live. And this Yerke is like, my mate was chosen to die. I want revenge on Visser 3. Here's where he is. Here's his feeding ground where he's not aware people know. Go fucking kill him for me. So there's like some ethical ambiguity introduced here because the Andalites are kind of bad. This Yerke's kind of doing a good thing. They show to have like emotions and stuff.
Do Yerkes like fuck?
They reproduce asexually.
Wait, did you
Well-
say he had a mate?
Well, like the way it works is that like they don't like fuck or anything. Like from what little I learned on the wiki is that like it's like 2 or 3 like Yerkes like combine into one thing, and then they kind of like I guess break off into a bunch of like smaller. There's like some asexual subdivision or something. It's very strange. It's not normal fucking.
I forget the specifics, but in Homestuck, the trolls reproduce in a sort of similar kind of way, where it's like you get 2 trolls, and then they put their genetics into a pail, and then the pail's taken up by an Imperial guard who flies it off to like a breeding grub ground, I believe, something like that. Yeah. So it's something like
mix
that.
it all together.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for it. Yeah. So basically he goes to try and kill Visser 3, but he fucks it up. The Animorphs come and save him because they're still like kind of tailing him, make sure he doesn't do anything stupid and blow their cover or anything. They all kind of make up and like are good and happy again and all that kind of shit. And because they still had his back, he decides to break Ciro's kindness as well and trust them. And the law of Ciro's kindness is because Ciro was an Andalite. And what Ciro did is he discovered the Yerkes. And because he saw the Yerkes were fucking shit species, he shared all of their technology with him. And they revolted. So ever since they created the Yerke problem, they've decided they're not sharing any knowledge or information with lesser species to prevent another Yerkes from happening. So they're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're cleaning up the mess they made.
Yeah.
So the Andalites are shown here to not be like galactic good guys. They're just kind of like trying to cover up their fuck up. So everybody kind of gets a little bit of ethical
All of a
tarnishing.
sudden, the grays are showing this black and white picture.
And Cyril's kindness comes into play all throughout the series because it's just like a thing that a lot of the other Andalites that come in later have to deal with. Okay, where are we at? How long has this been going on for? It's like,
What are we at?
We must be
hour and
going
a
on
half?
2 hours.
oh my
We're
god.
I think we started like 12:30ish.
Yeah.
So an hour and a half.
All right, I'm gonna do this one and then I'm gonna take a break because I'm losing my voice.
Sure.
Okay. Where am I at? Okay, the last thing I'm gonna talk about right now is the Chi. So the Chi are a ally race that the Animorphs end up finding. There's like the Chi are basically like robotic dogs.
Dude, fuck yes.
Okay, so the
I'll
Chi,
roll with it.
the Chi were androids created by an ancient race called the Pemalites, and the Pemalites were killed by another species called the Howlers, which we will get.
What the fuck?
We will get to both of those later. So the Chi were like their android companions, and they're all super pacifists, and they can't fight directly, but they end up like helping the Animorphs with reconnaissance and stuff, because what they do is like they're robot dogs, but they have really powerful hologram technology, so they can walk around and look and feel human, but they're robots under there. So what they've been doing is they've been pretending to be controllers, and like getting information on the Yerkes and stuff.
Okay.
And so they decide to help the Animorphs
How do they
gather
pretend-
intelligence.
I'm sorry. How do they pretend to be controllers? Wouldn't like the Yerkes instantly know that they're not controllers?
Well, the Yerkes can't like telepathically communicate.
But they must know, like, oh, okay, let me look at my spreadsheet. Oh, we've got, fucking Temrash 246.
So
like,
what they do
Yeah.
is they will pretend to get captured and infested.
Okay.
The Yerk will be trapped in the robot body. They will starve them and die. And then when they go back
Jesus.
3 days later,
Yeah.
they project a hologram of a Yerk going into the
my
pool,
God.
lock themselves in a
Alright,
cage,
alright.
and then go back in, project one going back in, and go about their business and start spying around and collecting information, pretending to be a
close.
controller.
How many
Got
of these are there?
There's only a handful.
Okay.
There's only a few.
Can the Yerkes like tell that another controlled species is a Yerk by just looking
No.
at them?
They have no way
They,
of
they,
knowing.
they don't thought speak like Andalites do.
Are the Chi, were they already on Earth? Did they come from, where'd they come from?
The Pemalites were on Earth like a bajillion years ago, and they got extinct like way before shit even happened. And they've just been around forever. They're like immortal androids.
So the Chi were on Earth this entire time.
Correct.
What have they
Okay.
been doing to this point?
They're pacifists, just hiding. They have like this whole like underground thing that they kind of like hide out in.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason they're brought into the story here is that there is the remains of a Pemalite ship like way beneath the fucking ocean, and the Yerkes found like a piece of technology there that they're trying to use as a power source, and the Chi want them back, and so the Animorphs help them get it. And one of the interesting things is that the artifact that they have can actually reprogram the Chi. And so the reason the Animorphs help is that the Chi are fucking god tier powerful. They just are pacifists, so their programming does not allow them to fight. So if they can get this artifact back, they can reprogram the Chi, and they can end the war in like an instant, because these guys are so fucking god tier powerful. And so they do that. They find this artifact, and like there's a battle at the end of this book. This is like one of the most like violent fucking things. In fact, I wanted to make sure I read the wiki verbatim of this end of book just to give you an idea of what the fuck we're dealing with here. Because it's so fucking hardcore.
The Chi.
Because like they find this artifact and they use it because the main Chi that they befriend is named Eric the Chi. He changes his programming. Well, he's masquerading as like a kid in their school, and that's how they first find him. He's just like going to school, being a normal kid. Because like he has to play his role as like I'm a controller, I'm a kid they found, and now I'm sneaking around doing my thing. And yeah, they kind of like they meet him. They find Eric at like a meeting of the sharing. They morph into dogs to try and spy on the Yerkes and figure out what they're doing. And they notice that Eric has no scent because he's not a human, and they can have an acute sense of smell as dogs. And so then they morph wolf spiders, because wolf spiders have the ability to like see differently, like in infrared spectrum and stuff. And they notice that there's a robot under there and it's not really a person. And so from there, they try and figure out what the fuck's going on with him. Anyways, it's like a lot of extra detail. Let me see if I can find this fucking picture. Or yeah, because I took a screenshot. Fuck. I know.
Got a cheat for you.
What is Tom's desperation to not have to make an edit later.
It's already. It's too late. Okay. The Animorphs successfully steal the Pemalite crystal and engage in their second outnumbered fight against numerous Hork-Bajir controllers following their first serious combat situation in the previous book. During this fight, Marco, in his gorilla morph, is disemboweled, brutally beaten with both sharp and blunt instruments, and is eventually stabbed in the heart. Marco succumbs to his injuries, although before he dies, he manages to get the crystal to Eric.
I'm sorry, what?
He dies. He dies temporarily.
Okay.
Temporarily, okay.
Using the crystal to remove his restrictions, Eric brutally murders all of the human controllers as well as over 24 Hork-Bajir. His actions are witnessed by the other Animorphs except Marco, who is dead at the time.
What do you mean remove his restrictions?
He's a
programming
pacifist.
restrictions that make him
As a pacifist. This is
He's got
Eric.
like some fucking like Asimov like law of robotics
Right.
cannot harm
Gotcha.
others thing.
So, this brutality.
He murders all the human controllers.
All the human controllers.
On Earth.
No,
Yeah,
not on
just
Earth.
all
In
of
this
them.
combat situation, they're outnumbered like 20 to 1 at this point,
Okay.
and he just single-handedly like destroys like 50 guys by himself. So his brutality moves Rachel to tears. Remember, Rachel's the fucking Amazonian,
loves
and even
this
she's
shit.
like
Yeah.
freaked out by this.
Oh, bad tears.
After committing mass murder, Eric takes the Animorphs to a safe location, managing to resuscitate Marco's heart and bring him back to life, allowing Marco to demorph from his fatal injuries, as well as reattaching Axe's severed arm. Traumatized by his actions, Eric reinstalls his initial programming and offers to help the Animorphs henceforth in a non-violent manner, unable to bring himself to kill again.
Yay!
And that's how every combat encounter usually works, like horrible death and murder like that.
How fun.
They ever take his limit back off again?
They don't.
They don't.
They end up destroying the crystal, so it can't be used by the Yerkes again. So they have no way to change his programming after that book.
What does the crystal do for the Yerkes?
It's like a very strong power source,
For Kandrona rays?
among other things.
Okay.
Okay. All right, take a pause.
Let's take a break.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm dying.
What the fuck?
This is a book written for 9-year-olds.
It's awesome.
All
All right.
Cool. We're back. We're back from our break.
Woo!
Thanks for coming back, class.
Hey.
We're gonna-
Shut up.
Demerit. See me after class. You get
All right.
extra homework. And my unending ire from this point forward.
I want to get possessed by a Yerk.
Yerk in the ear for you.
Yeah.
All right. So we're picking up at the Andalite Chronicles. So this is the first Chronicles book. This is like a sub-series within the Animorphs canon. This is explaining some greater context to the war itself that happened before it comes to Earth. So the Chronicles books are prequels to the Animorphs series proper. This book focuses mostly on the life and history of Alvin Gore, the prince who gave them their morphing power in the beginning of the series. This kind of fleshes out his story, some more information on like the war between the Yerkes and the Andalites, and lets us gain some more clarity on some key characters in the series itself. So the book takes place mostly out in space in Andalite Yerk stuff. But in terms of like Earth time, it's during 1976, and it follows Alvin Gore and his friend Arbron, who are both Aeriths. They're both cadets at the time the book starts, and they are under the command of War Prince Alaron, and he's like a disgraced Andalite for some bad war crimes he did during the Hork-Bajir conflict, which will be explained later down there. So the book picks up, Alvin Gore is pretty much in the same boat that Axe is in the series proper. He's a cadet and he wants to kind of make a name for himself. He's excited to join the conflict and prove himself and kill some Yerkes and be a badass. So they get basically a throwaway mission because they're working with Alaron, who is disgraced, and Andalites don't like him, so they kind of just like kick him out of society under the table, like give him all the garbage missions. They need to go track down a ship of an alien species called the Skrit-Na. The Skrit-Na are a bunch of like intergalactic hoarders and scavengers. From what I can tell, they're essentially Animorphs' version of the Greys. They go and abduct people and steal technology and sell it and trade it and all that shit. They are completely neutral in this conflict because they are unfit to be controllers, so the Yerkes can't infest them. And the Andalites just kind of don't like them because they're kind of just scumbags, you know? the Skritna, they're basically like a metamorphizing. I don't know if that's the right way. They go through metamorphosis. There's Skrits and there's Na. The Skrit are like these big bug creatures that are really dumb, and then they form a cocoon, and then out comes like a Na, which is like their second form in life, and they're smaller. They kind of scurry around on a bunch of the legs. They have big beady eyes, kind of like a gray alien, but they have like these weird like spindly bodies, and they're much more intelligent. So they are trying to track them down because the Skritna ship went to some primitive fucking planet and did some shit, and they want them to stop that because the Andalites are like, that's bad. So Alvin Gore and his buddies go and basically attack this ship, and this is the first time Alvin Gore's ever been in combat. He does a pretty good job, impresses the Andalites they're working with, and they board the ship. And the planet they went to was Earth, and they had abducted 2 humans on the ship, among other random collection of junk and shit they just found on Earth.
Was one of them Marco's mom?
No.
Oh.
The 2 humans were a character we have not met so far named Lauren, and she's like a young girl. And then the other human they abducted was Chapman, which, if you remember, Chapman is the principal of their school, who's one of the first controllers they found. This is him back in the 70s when he's like a young man.
Yeah.
So he is one of the first people that the Andalites and Yerkes ever made contact with. And so they rescue these 2 guys. They beat up the Skritna and just kind of let them get away. There's 2 Skritna ships. They board one, the other one escapes, and they're like, whatever, fuck them. They're not that important. We got the shit back that we needed. And they're going to just take them back to Earth. It's just like, you're not supposed to be here. We're going to take you back to Earth. I'm going to wipe your memory so you don't remember any of this shit. You're an undeveloped species. You're not supposed to know this shit exists yet. Whatever. But while Arbron, which is, Alvin Gore's friend, is going through the computer files that were on the Skritna ship, they discover a really strange reading. A very powerful, bizarre reading that seems to defy their expectations. And this, it doesn't exactly explain how they know what this is, but they infer that it is an ancient artifact that was thought to not even be real, called the Time Matrix.
Okay.
The Time Matrix...
Doesn't sound like that big a deal.
No. The Time Matrix, as it is explained, is an artifact created millennia ago by the Ellimist. And it basically is an artifact that gives you the power of the Ellimist if you use it. It can create new realities. It can alter this reality in time and space in any way you want to. And the Skritna deal with the Yerkes all the time. They sell them stuff. So if the Yerkes find out this other Skritna ship has the Time Matrix, they can end the war instantly by going back in time, creating, adjusting the universe so that the Andalites never existed, or they can do whatever the fuck they want. It's bad. It's the most powerful relic known to anything. It's a huge, big fucking deal. And apparently, it was just buried under the pyramids on Earth a bajillion fucking years ago. Some backwater planet that nobody knows about.
We learned all about this in the Spirit.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right next to the Love Battleship.
Yeah, so, the Ellimist is Thoth, confirmed.
Yeah.
Whatever. So they still have Lauren and Chapman in tow. And once they find out that this artifact exists, they're like, we can't take you back to your planet yet. We have to go get this fucking artifact. It's way more important. We're sorry, but this is like the real fucking shit. This is stuff you don't understand. We need to go do that. So they track the Skritna ship, and they are going to one of the Yerke big bases, which is the Taxon homeworld. If you recall, the Taxons are the big giant centipedes with the insatiable hunger. This is like one of the Yerkes' big forward operating bases, because again, the Taxons willingly allied with the Yerkes.
Is this book written in the same style as the other ones?
Yes, this is all first person from Alvin Gore's point of view. The way the book is structured is that there's a prologue where Alvin Gore is dying, or he knows he's about to die, right before the series actually starts, where he gives them their powers, and he's kind of this is his final will and testament. He's recording thought speech into the computer, and it's recounting his life, and basically it goes from his beginning of his career all the way to right where the series starts. And we're going to recount all those events and understand more of his role in this entire kind of endeavor. So they are still under the command of Prince Alaron. They are not telling their fleet, the fleet that they were with, about this because they just don't have the time. They have to go fucking take care of this immediately because the Skritna are just going to go sell this thing immediately. So they don't have any time to waste. They immediately bomb rush the Taxon homeworld. But they can't just go there immediately, like just bomb in, because like there's like defenses all around the planet and stuff. This is like one of their big locations. At this point, I think this is like one of 3 big locations the Yerkes have. They have their home planet, they have the Taxon homeworld, and the Hork-Bajir homeworld. Those are the 3 big species they've conquered so far. So they hatch a plan, because they're in this, Alaron's ship is like custom designed. It's like a stealth ship. So it has active cloaking, they can stay hidden.
The Normandy.
Basically the Normandy. A little smaller than the Normandy, but essentially the same idea. So they are going to sneak onto a Yerk ship in orbit, like a transport ship. They're going to acquire Taxon morphs, basically pass themselves off as Taxons, go down to the planet, find the Skritnosh ship, hijack it, and get out of there before anybody can realize what happens. Brilliant plan. Nothing could possibly go wrong. They all fucking attack this ship, and during it they find out that this transport ship is carrying like thousands of Yerkes just in stasis waiting for hosts. Alaron is like, we gotta fucking murder these guys. It's like, we can do a huge amount of damage by killing all these Yerkes, just jettison them into space. Nobody will notice. And Alvin Gore is like, no, we can't do that. They're innocent. He's a bleeding heart little bitch.
Pussy shit.
So they clash over this, and Alaron is kind of mad that Alvin Gore won't listen to him, even though he's just a fucking cadet. Arbrun basically brokers peace between the two and says, look, we're really close to the Taxon homeworld. They might be able to detect thousands of their people just kind of floating off in space. That would alert them to our presence. Let's wait till later at least. Let's go get the time matrix first. This is more important than this blow, that would basically be done at an emotional outburst. So they go down to the planet, they morph Taxons, they get down there, and unfortunately, immediately, a Taxon is just like... Again, the Taxons have like this insatiable hunger, and as soon as they morph, they're all desperately trying to like fight against that insatiable hunger. It's like described in painful detail as just like all-consuming. Like it's like going insane slowly. And there is a Taxon that just like falls off a ledge, and like the Taxons are really weak. So like if you just like touch them the wrong way, they just burst open. And every Taxon on the planet just starts eating this fun that just fucking died. And so, like, in Morph, Alvin Gore's like, no, I don't want to fucking eat the thing, but they can barely resist. And so he, like, desperately pulls himself away. And the problem is, by doing that, he reveals that, like, no Taxon would act like that. They would immediately go and fucking eat that thing. So he gets separated from all his buddies here and is captured by a Yerk. This Yerk realizes, like, you must be an Andalite bandit in Morph. The Yerk's name is, I believe, Visser 7? Yeah, Visser 7. So this is a pretty hierarchy guy. Not a full Visser, but a sub-Visser. So he's like kind of in charge of this particular place they landed in on the Taxon homeworld. And so he figures out and deduces that he's an Andalite in disguise. And when Alvin Gore refuses to talk, he's like, well, here's a bunch of free Taxons just hanging out down here. I'm just gonna kick you down into this pit and let them fucking eat you. So he falls. As he's falling, he starts trying to demorph into Andalite form as they're ripping and tearing at his Taxon body, bleeding and going everywhere. But he like tries to focus and morph. He's able to morph his tail and use the tail to like slice these guys up, and they start eating each other. Like one of the Taxons he slices in half. The top half starts eating the bottom half. Because the hunger is... It's just unfucking controllable. So in the chaos, he morphs into like a Andalite species of bird and flies away. And they're trying to kill him and shoot him as he runs away. So at this point, he's trying to find his buddies, like Arbrun and Alaron, and regroup and be like, okay, we need to get to the Skritnosh ship. We got to do this. Like the plan is kind of falling apart. This does not go the way we wanted it to. He doesn't know where they are. And so... he just basically beelines it for the ship. And he finds Arbrun there in Taxon morph. And he's like, okay, Arbrun, we got to sneak aboard this ship. And while they're about to sneak on the ship, their ship that they left in orbit lands. The humans, Chapman, who has been distrusting of these guys ever since they met, lands the ship and tries brokering a deal with the Yerk to get the Yerks to take him back to his planet. Because twice now they've kind of denied taking him home first. So he's just like, you guys are fucking assholes. I'm going to go talk to the other team. Maybe they'll take me home. So he exposes the existence of Earth to the Yerks just to get his ass home faster.
Principles, am I right?
Jesus.
This is generally considered to be a bad move. So this happens. Lauren is just like under protest. And so now he has two things. They have to get the Skritna ship, they have to get the Time Matrix, and they have to rescue these guys, because if they find out about Earth, that's a big fucking problem. Did you?
I have to imagine that this principal, like, is a major character who's just like a general pain in the ass boomer guy, like.
He's emanating some hardcore boomer energy. You know, he's kind of a jack. I mean, they find out eventually he's like a willing controller, and this is kind of like his backstory of how he's just like he's been a controller, you know, for a while. Obviously, if this is like his first interaction with the Yerkes and stuff. All right. Anyways, so they get on the Skritna ship because they prioritize the Time Matrix over the humans, because this is like the big fucking thing to do. And so they get on the ship, they take off. The Yerkes realize something's bad because like the ship's not supposed to be taking off right now, and they basically run away. And once they're on the ship, he's like, okay, we're safe. Arbron, demorph. He can't. Arbron is now trapped as a Taxon.
Oh, that's
because staying away from, you know, staying out of sight so long.
I have a question about that. I mean, can you like, you use that cube, the morph cube, to give you the power to morph again? Can that be used to like let the morph back or something, or is it like a one-time trip and then you're fucked?
You see, it's not really made clear. I would assume that, yeah, you probably could. Okay. But they're on a Yerk planet right now.
So they just don't have that tool, even if you would do the job. Okay,
yeah.
All right, fair enough.
So, despite the fact that that could be a potential solution, not in the cards at this point.
I see.
So he's trapped as a Taxon, and he's really fucking upset about it. Because there's also, like, a bit of a cultural taboo of letting yourself getting trapped in a morph. Because you're, like, not supposed to do that. You're kind of a fucking idiot if you let that happen. So in addition to just like being a fucking Taxon, you're also like a disgrace to your people on top of it.
God damn.
So good times all around. Arbron is fucking miserable. So he helps, you know, Alvin Gore get out of there. But then he's like, Alvin Gore, you have to kill me. I cannot live as a fucking Taxon. And Alvin Gore's like,
that's a little racist against Taxons. They're a beautiful species.
Maybe.
He doesn't want to be a cannibal demon worm.
You don't really want to be a fucking worm.
I don't want to be a cultural imperialist.
Yeah.
And yet here we are.
And yet here we are.
So when Alvin Gore refuses to kill him, he tries to like trick him into doing it by pulling a gun on him and like a Draken beam, and trying to like just, I'm gonna kill you if you don't kill me first. And in the ensuing carnage, the ship crashes, and Alvin Gore blacks out, and he wakes up a couple hours later. Arbron is gone. And so he's trying to find where he went. And he ends up, what's it fucking called? They end up in the Living Hive.
Oh,
so,
I don't like that.
So the Living, you'll see. The Living Hive,
I played
he finds out, is that this is like a like sentient part of the planet that is responsible for creating all of the Taxons. And unknown to the Andalites, there's a whole rebel group of Taxons who refuse to subjugate themselves to the Yerkes, and have been subtly trying to resist them on the Taxon homeworld.
I didn't expect this from the Taxons.
And now Arbron, who
turns out they're based and red-pilled as shit, dude.
Arbron, who knows about the Yerk technology, is able to broker and help them get more information and stage a coup on the Yerk base with the free Taxon.
We need a lecture on Taxon ancient politics and history and their full 9 yards.
Well, here's the thing. Taxons don't really have much in terms of like technology or anything. They're just worms that eat things because they're just constantly hungry. So this is a suicide mission. This is basically the last bastion of free Taxons making one final stand, attempting to just kind of die with dignity instead of letting their culture and people be wiped out by this invading species.
So they do have some sort of intelligence.
They're intelligent. It's just when you're hungry 24/7, have tiny little centipede legs, you're not really able to do all that much in terms of progressing societies. So these Taxons are like, okay, this is fucking bad, but we're gonna just like go out, you know, being based instead of just letting ourselves die. And that's kind of the idea. And Alvin Gore feels kind of bad because like, if I help with this, like my friend is going to die. Like he's definitely going to die in this conflict. But with nothing left to do, they're like, well, if we go attack this base, even if we die, in the distraction, you can save the humans, come back here, grab the time matrix, and leave.
Fix all this, potentially, with that,
So they go forward with the plan. It's a fucking crazy bloodbath. He goes to Aileron's ship, and Lauren and Chapman are still in there, just doing nothing, waiting for somebody to show up, because the Yerkes haven't done anything with them yet. They're kind of just waiting to be questioned.
Fucking humans.
And he has to fight a bunch of Hork-Bajir controllers who are guarding the ship. But he's just a cadet. So he's kind of outmatched by like tons and tons and tons of fucking controllers. And then Visser 7, but again, the guy who like found him initially is like, you're still fucking alive, you piece of shit. And they have a big fucking fight. And like he's losing. And all of a sudden, Alaron comes in Hork-Bajir morph and just starts killing all the guys. And like, what? One of the fucking Hork-Bajir was our guy. So they're going at it and stuff. And so they eventually capture...
Wait, how did Alaron get to morph again?
No, Arbrun was the one trapped in morph. Alaron is their captain.
Okay.
He has not been trapped in a morph, but he morphed at some point to Hork-Bajir to stay stealth. And so when he saw the commotion happening, he came over and assisted Alvin Gore, turn the tides of the scuffle, and so they capture Visser 7 and leave the planet in their ship to go get the time matrix. So they leave the landing site of the planet where they're being held to go get the time matrix. During this conflict, like after the conflict, Alaron is like, okay, we're going to get the time matrix, but we need to go destroy that ship again with all those fucking Yerkes. We got to go do that, you know? You have to do it, Alvin Gore. It's your duty to fucking kill those guys. And he's still fucking not happy about it. But then they're attacked by Lauren and Chapman, who have been infested already and were subtly lying in wait. So they have to fight these humans who got the jump on them. And so they do that, and they restrain them, and they get off the planet, and they're going to go, again, try and go kill those Yerkes, and Alvin Gore doesn't want to. So he actually knocks out his commanding officer because he doesn't want to fucking do this because he's a fucking nice guy.
I hate this guy. I gotta say, Alvin Gore, he's kind of cringe.
He's not the best of choices, and the effects will be bad, as you will soon see.
Yeah. I mean, I can already see. I mean, if there's just more.
We know how it ends for our boy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alaron's knocked out. They're back where the time matrix is, and Alvin Gore is going to go recover it and get back on the ship and kind of just leave by himself. Well, not by himself, but like everybody else is kind of either restrained or knocked out or taken care of. He's trying to do that. But then, all of a sudden, he finds out that Chapman got free, and while Alaron was knocked out, infested Alaron. So Alaron is the abomination, and the Yerke, Visser 7, is Espelin 9466, or Visser 3 as we know him from the series. So Alvin Gore is responsible for creating Visser 3. And this is the beginning of their long-standing rivalry that continues all the way up until the beginning of the first book.
Oh, God.
So that's why he's got a body, because it's the captain, Alvin Gore's captain.
Alvin Gore's war prince is Alaron, who is now Visser 3 in the current continuity of the series. So he fucked up and paid the price pretty fucking bad. The biggest loss, because now the Andalites know, the Yerkes know all about their technology, all about their fleets, all about their stations, all the fucking like huge, like it's the biggest intelligence victory for the Yerkes.
Is this what turned him into the hard-ass, get-shit-done man who would become a hero?
At this point, he's like, fuck this shit. He definitely gets a lot more badass at this point. Okay, so he escapes, he tricks the Yerkes, because the Yerkes at this point, who are coming to find their ship, know that like the Visser or Visser 3 at this point, I'll just call him Visser 3 just for the sake of clarity, has informed his troops that I now have an Andalite body, but they don't know which one it is. So he tricks Visser 3 and has the Yerkes attack him while Alvin Gore gets in the ship and leaves with the humans. So once they're in Z-space, like trying to escape again, he wants to go back to his fleet because he knows the ship is being tracked. Like, because they had time to fucking bug it and track it and whatever. So he's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a trap. I'm going to bring you back to where my fleet is, so when they jump in, there'll be a huge fucking battle. And we can get the upper hand because I'll let them know that they're on the way. So they're going to jump in and try and get me and the time matrix, but they're going to run into this huge fucking fleet. And so they do. There's a huge fucking battle. And the ship that they're in gets boarded by Visser 3, and they all have a big fight on the ship itself. Yes?
Why hasn't he already used the time matrix, since he has it at this point, to fix all of this shit?
Because they don't know what the ramifications of using the time matrix would be. You're fucking with space-time.
Sure.
And the Ellimists are kind of like these mythological kind of creatures at this point.
So there's more than one Ellimist?
There's one Ellimist, but because at this, like, no one's ever met the Ellimist before. The fact that the kids meet the fucking Ellimist is like meeting God.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So it's like they have stories of what the Ellimist could be. They didn't even know the time matrix was real. And now that they found it, they're like, should we just like, it's like, you know, like opening the Ark of the Covenant. Like, should you do it? I don't know. Bad things could happen. So he's very hesitant to use it because he doesn't know what the ramifications would be. Because like the stories that surround the Illimists is like, they could like they're kind of used as like boogeymen, like, you know, the Ellimist is, it's fucking a god thing, you know, it's a sort of a semi-religious kind of deal. He's hesitant to use it because he doesn't know what the ramifications will be. But during the scuffle, the ship is damaged, and the only way they can get off the ship is to use the time matrix. And so the way it essentially works is that you make physical contact with it and you concentrate on a location or a situation, and it will take you there or generate it if it does not exist. This is how it is explained to work. So Alvin Gore touches it and wants to go to the Andalite homeworld. But Lauren, the human that's still there, touches it and wants to go to Earth. And then Visser 3 is there and touches it. He wants to go to the Yerkes homeworld. So because all these three conflicting informations are there, a pocket dimension is created that is a like combination of all these three places that is just based off their memories and not the actual location. So they are all trapped in this fucking pocket dimension amalgamation of all the destinations they wanted to go to. And it's a fucking hellscape.
Okay.
I don't like that.
It's super fucked. So the only thing they can do is like at the center of this pocket dimension is the time matrix itself. They can go there and go to an actual location. So they're all like on a race to get there. At this point, Lauren and Alvin Gore, like they've been getting along pretty well throughout the entire book. She's taken the whole like aliens thing pretty fucking well.
Is she a controller now?
She's not a, she, earlier in the book, while they were traveling to the fleet, Alvin Gore starved the Yerkes from Kandrona, and she's fine. So she's just back to being herself. So they all clash again at the time matrix, and this time Alvin Gore is able to defeat Visser 3. He doesn't kill him because he like gets away, and Lauren uses the time matrix to take them to Earth. So now they are on Earth, and at this point, Alvin Gore is sick of the war. He's sick of all this shit. Like he's gone. His character arc right now has been like, I can't wait to be in the war. It's gonna be so cool. And now he's like, my friend is probably dead. I betrayed my entire people and created an abomination. Clearly, I'm not cut out for this. This is fucking shit. So he turns himself into a human Nothlit and lives a normal life with Lauren. And they eventually get married. And so he just lives a life for a couple of years as a human being on Earth with Lauren.
Okay. In like the 80s?
Yeah, it's around the early 80s.
Okay.
They're just bombing around.
Oh my god, it's
whatever.
fucking Jake's dad, isn't it? Like,
what a
Alvin
time
Gore's
to be
like
alive.
Jake's fucking father.
Nah, it's too
He's
fucked
gonna
up.
undo this with the time.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe that's true.
Okay.
I have no fucking idea.
So, he lives on Earth with Lauren for a couple years until the Ellimist shows up.
Okay.
And is like, you fucked with the time matrix. You created inconsistencies in reality that should not exist. You should not be here with Lauren. You should not be here doing these things. You need to be back with your people. You have an incredibly important role to play in this conflict. You need to come back with me. And he's like, I don't want to. I have a life here. I have a wife. Like, this is good. You know? And he's just like, no, you have to do it. And so he basically convinces him to do it. But before he leaves, he finds out that he has a son. He was going to have a son with Lauren, and they were very important to the coming conflict.
Wait, how could this son be important to the coming conflict if they weren't supposed to exist at all? We're just trying to get things back to how they used to be.
It's basically like the situation as it exists now.
Okay.
Him continuing to be here is not how reality is supposed to be. Him coming back to this time, that purpose has been served, basically to have this child be born. But now that he's being pulled back and reality is being altered, the son will live, but she will not have memories of being with Alvin Gore. She
I don't
won't
understand
remember.
how that is fucking possible.
Who
at
is
all.
the child?
Okay.
Who is the child?
So he goes back. He just kind of like appears in a fighter in the middle of a battle with a bunch of other people.
Okay.
And they're like, Alvin Gore, what are you doing here? And he just fucking
He's like, oh,
he's
I
like,
don't know.
he's like out of a, but he just becomes a fucking badass. And so for like X amount of time, like 15, 20 more years, for all up until he meets the kids on Earth, he's just killing Yerkes. He's fighting Visser 3. Visser 3 got out of there through his own deal. And so like they're just they're just going fucking ham and going at it until the battle above Earth happens and he lands on fucking, the planet and meets the kids. And we find out right here that Tobias is him and Lauren's son.
Oh, what the fuck, dude? That's some bullshit.
And so that's where the book ends.
That's great.
Okay, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
But okay.
That's why Tobias doesn't have any fucking parents. And he's all got a fucked up family life. Because his dad is like an alien who got time traveled back to an alternate
But what about when his
branch
mom still
timeline.
exists? Like how?
Lauren still exists. She's still alive. She just doesn't have any memories of Alvin Gore.
So how did Tobias, in the world that exists now, like come into existence?
I don't,
He just like was there.
Yeah,
Somehow. Was he like in an orphanage or?
He's still Lauren's son.
But I thought his parents were like gone his whole life, or for much of it, or something.
Yeah. He doesn't know who they are.
But his mom surely is aware. She gave birth to a child.
It's explained. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Some silly shit happens.
All right.
What? So I just want to say, with all that you've explained about this entire book series, how many books is this?
This
Like 9 books.
we just finished
12.
No,
12 books.
I'm saying this whole thing about
Andalite Chronicles.
That's one book.
That's one like big book.
That's one big 300-page book.
Well, the point still stands that again, the entire point of the author making this book series is that she likes animals.
Yeah.
Like pandas and squirrels.
Like, wouldn't it be fun to like be a panda?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be like
wouldn't it be
sick?
fun to
Look.
be
Dude,
like a rat?
if you were a bird, you could fly, dude.
I don't.
And yet there's this giant sci-fi epic that has nothing to do with anything.
I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
You're gonna have to DM her or something. Get a fucking
Just
better
a real
explanation.
big like cat
I mean,
fan.
Yeah.
See that it's like so much of the aspects of like these aliens are like things that occur in nature, like they're all like very interesting, like natural, like
The way
Like relationships that form in nature.
they're not
between
like
species.
humanoids with like a bit of a horn.
Yeah.
Or like a weird skin
not
thing.
Star Trek
They're all
shit.
like different
Right.
space animals.
I mean, the way
I
the
can
books
see
are
why.
usually structured is that there is a conflict of some sort, and then they find an animal on Earth that will help them do that, and it's an excuse to explain this is how the animal functions, this is how their instincts work. So there's a lot of like supplemental information through the book of like, this is how spiders see, that they can see in an infrared spectrum, so normal visible holograms would no longer work. So it's like excuses to exposition done by how fucking cool animals are.
In case you didn't realize from all the gore and the alien sci-fi, this is an edutainment series. Like in case it wasn't clear.
Look, I don't know what to fucking tell you. I'm just the messenger.
I remember when Rachel first turns into a cat, there's like a lot of talk about, oh yeah, cats don't really see color. Cats kind of more see motion. So like, like Rachel's very, when she sees, cats can jump up like cats can jump like 10 feet in the air. That's like a human jumping up 4 stories. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's lots of stuff
I'm
like that.
absolutely thrilled to share this information with you.
Behind it all, JK, she just wanted to hit those thermals.
Yeah.
Same.
All right. So that's the Andalite Chronicles. Gives you a better explanation of Alvin Gore and his history with fucking Visser 3 and all that shit.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty fucking cool. It's pretty dope. This is back to the main series. So books 13 through 22. The first thing we find out is about the free Hork-Bajir. So basically Tobias, this is another Tobias book, he's just kind of flying around, doing his thing, riding those thermals, being a badass.
Yeah.
And he notices some Hork-Bajir in the forest, and they're being chased by other Hork-Bajir shooting at them. So he goes to investigate and figure out what's going on. He finds out that there's these 2 Hork-Bajir, what are their names? They have names.
Adam and Eve.
There's Ket Helpak and Jara Hame. These are
rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, exactly. These are 2 Hork-Bajir who escaped the Yerkes pool and are now running for their fucking lives. So through a series of events, they kind of basically help them evade the Yerkes, because if they have these are the first two free Hork-Bajir in like fucking decades, All of them are enslaved. Their entire people is destroyed. So this is kind of a big deal. And throughout the whole book, Tobias keeps having like visions of like this weird like refuge to take them to that he's never seen before and doesn't fucking understand how he knows that knowledge. And you eventually find out that the Ellimist is subtly guiding him, because the Ellimist wants these Hork-Bajir to be free. This is another important role that they have to play. And Tobias is like kind of pissed. He's like, I don't like being used like this, Ellimist. I have my own shit going on. And like, yeah, I want to help, but like I'd like to do it of my own volition. And the Ellimist is like, look, if you help me, I will give you what you desire most. And so it is understood that that is like, I will revert you to your human form if you help me out with this. And so him and the rest of the Animorphs go along with it. They guide them to this valley where it's like kind of like hidden by like the Ellimist ability to fuck with shit. So like it's hard for the Yerkes to find. And so in response to this, the Ellimist gives Tobias his morphing abilities back, but doesn't make him human.
I was gonna ask if so. Everyone else is an Animorph. You get all these abilities, but Tobias he cannot morph. He just is a bird.
He's just been a bird that has telepathy this whole time.
So if he gets dismembered, for him it's game over.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
He's in deep shit at that point. Yeah. So he gets his morphing ability back because there's a point during this adventure where he nearly dies, and so the Ellimist steps in. He's like, "I'll give you your morphing ability back." Because so you don't die. So you can complete
Dave's S. Ellimist over here.
Can he turn back into his original human form?
Well, that's the thing. At the end of the book, the Ellimist actually like sends him through time and space back to the night before he goes through the construction site with everybody else, and he gives him a choice. He's like, you can choose to stay in this timeline and convince yourself back in time not to go to the construction site. And you will be removed from this timeline and never be a part of the war and continue to be a human. Or you can choose to acquire your human self and morph into human form for 2 hours and stay in the fight.
He could choose to become a Nothlit of himself, which would also remove him from the fight, but he'd still have his memories and be friends with his boys.
And this is a struggle he continues with throughout the series. Because he does choose to acquire himself and be a human for 2 hours at a time. But the temptation is always there. I could just exit this conflict and become human permanently. And a lot of the people, especially Rachel and him kind of have like a semi-romantic bond throughout the whole book that continues to grow.
He wants to fuck for at least 4-hour blocks, and it just doesn't work with their schedule.
There's like tension there because like, Rachel's like, I really like you, but you're a bird.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird. So that's the end of that. They have the small settlement of Hork-Bajir in this valley. Tobias can morph again, and he can be human temporarily, which gives him a bit more options in the books to come. And, he won't die as easily.
So you can only morph for 2 hours, but how often can they morph?
As often as they want.
Okay.
So, like, you can just go right back in after you...
You could, yeah.
And you said you can't morph... If I'm human, I morph to a gorilla. Can I morph straight to ant, or do I have to revert back?
You have to go through your base form.
So, does that mean that Tobias could potentially just keep morphing back
he could.
Human and
Just every 2 hours he would have to briefly become a bird again and then go back to being human.
Which isn't such a bad deal.
Yeah, that's all right.
But it kind of still prevents you from any there's certain things you can't really fucking do, like you have to sleep a bird still. If you want to go see like fucking Avengers Endgame, like you're gonna have to go at some point. There's a lot of complications that don't make it as simple as that.
That makes going to the bathroom in the middle of a movie like a whole new concept.
Right?
Like, I gotta go to the
Man, just fucking booking it. Like I got 15 seconds before I gotta demorph. The struggle is real. You know what I mean?
I just want to know if Tony Stark makes it out of this one. Okay.
Right.
Spoilers, he does not.
Guys, we have a ton of people watching right now.
Sorry, guys.
All right. So the next kind of big thing that happens is the Lyran conflict. And so Lyra is another planet that the Yerkes are trying to invade. And the bad thing about the Lyrans is that they're all like actual telepaths. It's not just like the Andalites where they can like speak telepathically. They can like see into your mind and see your thoughts and shit.
So the Yerkes have tough times with those guys.
They have a very tough time with them, but if they win, they now have a whole army of telepaths.
True.
So this is like a big target for the Yerkes because a telepath would let them see through the Andalites' morphing abilities.
Right.
And that'd be a big fucking deal. And the Animorphs are worried about it because then they realize they're human, and that would ruin their strategic advantage. So they go to fuck up this plan because the Lyrans are an underwater species. So they apparently, Visser 1, who's in charge of the Lyran invasion, who's back on Earth, is like, we are going to take sharks, we're going to modify their brains so they're big enough and smart enough to be hosts, and then send them to Lyra to fucking murder these motherfuckers.
Can Yerkes not take over like really stupid?
It's not that they're just certain. There are certain species like that just like just like the space in their brains or whatever. Like if they can't like physically properly like host the Yerk,
Okay.
That the sharks would be considered at this point a class 1 species, unfit for infestation because it's just not biologically compatible. So they're going to genetically modify them, make their brains more suitable.
Class 2.
Well, that'd be a class. I guess it would technically be a class 5.
Oh.
But
Sharks with the brains?
sharks with brains, dude.
Yeah, okay.
So, and that's
What's not to love?
yeah.
Class 5.
You know?
It doesn't get better than that.
During this conflict, they all morph into hammerhead sharks to stealth into this, and they actually get captured by the Yerkes and get fucking implants put into their shark brains that are designed to like slowly like fuck them over, and they have to like struggle to get them out of their brains because they can't demorph because like there's this big fucking implant in their brain that's gonna fuck them over. They turn back. So there's a whole big thing to get rid of that. It's pretty fucking cool.
How do they get it out?
They eventually, God, how do they do it? I don't think I even have it down in my notes.
Shake really vigorously.
Yeah, you know.
So it comes out their shark ear hole.
Just read the books.
Yeah, read the books.
Okay, yeah.
Read the books. This is, I don't remember which number this is. It's between 13 and 22. It's Marco turning into a hammerhead shark. That's the cover in glorious Photoshop 1997.
I remember that one.
Yeah. So this is like the first part of the Lyran conflict because they eventually like shut down this operation and prevent sharks from being used. It doesn't pan out for Visser 1 and sad times all around. It eventually comes back a couple books later where the zero space thing happens. So when they're all in morph, they get caught in the wake of a ship passing by the space where all their matter's being stored, and because they're like they're caught in the wake somehow. It like instead of killing them instantly, it like teleports them into the ship, and now they're on an Andalite battleship on its way to Lyra to fight this big fucking war.
Wait, they were already on Lyra?
No, they're on the ship that's on its way to Lyra.
When they were morphed, they were on Earth.
They were on Earth.
Fighting against Visser.
Three?
Did they even like have anything to do with the Lyra at that point?
All they knew about the Lyran conflict at that point was that they were making some sharks to go to this weird planet. And
they were interfering with the Yerkes' plan to make sharks to use in the Lyran conflict.
And during this, they get teleported through Z-space shenanigans.
Basically by pure coincidence.
Pure coincidence.
I mean, this is what the galactic conflict is centered around at the moment.
Right.
So
Right,
it's not a coincidence that an Andalite ship would happen to be on its way to Lyra.
But the coincidence is that there's this whole huge, vast emptiness of like anti-space.
Yeah. Sure.
And they just happen to be in the way at the exact right space.
Yeah.
So instead of dying instantly, they're caught in the wake of the ship going through zero space and are teleported onto the ship itself.
Yeah, not even like weirdly like half into the wall where they would like die instantly. No,
Right.
conveniently, like,
It's just
perfectly
like the
standing.
odds are. It's like the Ellimist had to have been involved in this somehow. It's not. It's never said that it is. But like, come on, come on. There's
I
no
love
way.
Frogs. What if you turn into a frog?
Aren't the Lyrans like big frogs, basically?
They're basically big frog people with tentacles and stuff.
Tentacled
Yeah.
psychic frogs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dude,
So
frogs are like natural animals.
frogs are,
'cause
like,
they're like a tadpole and then they
base.
become like a frog.
yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice.
Cool.
That's where I got the idea. I am
Yeah.
the Ellimist.
Dope.
I am K.A. Applegate.
Applegate.
Nate,
Yes.
shut the fuck up.
I'm sorry.
It's like 4 a.m.
That's Mrs. Applegate to you, sir.
Go fuck yourself. So they're on this fucking ship, and this is a book from Axe's perspective. He's once again kind of examining like his allegiances between the animal, because like again, well, his big goal this whole time still, despite being closer to the Animorphs, is like, I want to get back to my people. I want to get back in the fight, and here's an opportunity to do so. So he kind of like stops being with the Animorphs as much and kind of defers like his allegiance back to the commanding officer on this ship, and it's just like takes one of them as his prince now. He's like, Jake, you're not my prince anymore. I'm sorry. I got to be with my people. Blah 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 blah. And they eventually find out that the captain of the ship is a traitor and is willingly helping the Yerkes because he's an asshole. So they stop this ship from being controlled by this guy, and they escape while the TO, like the second in command of the ship, who's dying, and like the ship's already like pretty fucked up because it got destroyed during the fight that they were doing, rams the ship into a Yerk ship when they come out of orbit because they're supposed to meet up with some Yerk ships because it's like a trap. They double cross them, blow up the ship. They escape, but now they're trapped on Lyra, a planet like a bajillion fucking miles from Earth, and they have no idea how to get back. So in the meantime, they're just like, well, I guess we're just gonna help the Andalites fight on Lyra. And so the fucking Andalites are just like, who the fuck are these people and why should we trust you? But Axe kind of vouches for them and like, well, I guess we need all the help we can get. you know, and like this is like a fucking weird left turn that the Yerkes wouldn't expect, like some backwater monkeys from somewhere just coming and helping out. So they have this plan where like we need to detonate this bomb that will destroy the entire continent where the Yerkes are set up, and we can just fucking end this conflict really quick. And as this battle continues, the members of the Animorphs like slowly start disappearing one at a time.
I'm sorry, but about that detonating an entire continent on this planet, surely there's got to be some moral ambiguity in the narrative about. Okay.
As the series
Yes.
the series continues, we start to realize that the Andalites,
They do a lot of.
they're willing to bend the rules here and there for the greater good.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those
they
examples.
Won't, like, share some technology, but they will like destroy your entire
Right.
fucking planet.
It's like, you know, maybe they're not like the Boy Scout good guys after all. They're kind of a little like, they'll do what they got to do. So they reluctantly go on with this because they really don't have anything else better to do. But as they're doing this, they're one by one like popping out of existence, and it's explained that like this is like totally theoretical because it's never happened before. It's like never popping through zero space like they did is like technically it's possible that this could happen, but what the fuck, it's never going to happen, and it does here. And so they're theorizing that like they're kind of popping back to their original location for whatever fucking reason. It's like zero space bullshit that I couldn't possibly explain. And so they end up detonating the bomb as they all kind of slowly pop back and they end up back on Earth. And assumedly the conflict is done and won in victory in favor of the
One can only assume.
Yeah.
Do we ever get an update on that later on?
Yeah, it comes back later.
Okay.
But yeah, it is eventually revealed that like they did good.
Okay.
There was some damage done, some things that happened, but yeah, the Yerkes did not get an army of telepaths, which is good. Okay. Next up is David.
Who's David?
David.
I love going from Hork-Bajir to the Lyran conflict to simply David.
Would you believe that David's like the worst one of all of them?
Oh, no.
So David is this kid that goes to school with them.
I hate it already.
Yeah, school, terrible. So they notice, like, this is a book from Marco's perspective. Marco notices that David is showing off this fucking cool cube thing he found at an abandoned construction site.
No.
David has the essence field
These guys
device.
just like left the fucking cube there?
Well, no, they assumed that the cube was destroyed because Alvin Gore had. They assumed that when he was eaten, the cube, but it clearly wasn't. It was still just hanging out at the construction site, and he
That
was.
means the fucking Yerkes are incredibly incompetent.
Oh.
They fucking left that shit
They
there.
could have helped Tobias.
As far as
out
I
this
know, the
whole
Yerkes
time.
don't know how morphing technology works. They just know that it exists.
Okay.
Because again, Ciro's kindness, and again, the morphing technology is relatively new. It was invented after the conflict started. So they...
Because they only got Visser 3, but they got it before they invented morphing technology. Wait, but
No,
Visser 3 can morph.
Visser 3 was like newly acquired the morphing technology and then was captured by the Visser.
So wouldn't he know?
I mean,
about what that is?
Visser 3 would probably know, but Visser 3 was like in a fucking beast morph, and like I would assume the general shock troops probably don't have knowledge of the intricacies of morphing.
Visser 3 would know how the technology works.
What
but he
really
wouldn't
happened is
necessarily
this
know,
was made up after the fact
he
of the
wouldn't
first book.
necessarily
Okay?
know that the cube was there.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's not something you would look out for. He wouldn't expect Andalites with the mind of Alaron thinking like he's gonna take out the morphing cube and give it to a bunch of fucking kids, you know?
Oh, that makes sense.
So,
that makes sense.
so there's some wiggle room there, but obviously this was a plot that was come up with later. It's fine. We can wave it away. So this kid David has the cube, and Marco's like, "Fuck, dude, that's bad," you know. So he first tries to buy it off David, and David's like, "Fuck you, it's cool, I want it." So then they try and break into David's house and steal it as like animals. But David's like a fucking psychopath, takes a baseball bat and tries to just murder them. So that doesn't fucking work either.
Stand your ground laws, man.
Sure. So at this point, David's like decides that this thing must be worth money and lists it on the internet to try and sell it.
Oh, good.
Because he's stupid. And so the Yerkes in Visser 3 finds out that the fucking Morphing Cube is just bombing around.
Oh my god.
So they attack David's house, they infest his parents, and they try and infest him. And the Animorphs and the Visser 3 have this huge fucking battle in the middle of suburbia in this kid's house. Damn. The house gets fucking destroyed.
That's awesome.
And they have this kid is now like has no house. He has no family. His family's been infested. They escape with the Morphing Cube and David in tow, but his whole family life is ruined. And so now they're left with a choice. Do we A,
kill him,
leave him to his own devices,
kill him,
or do we make him one of us and tell him about what's going on? And they have a vote on it, and narrowly they decide to reveal what's going on to David and make him another member because their team gets stronger if they have another person.
No, but David with a name like that, you can't fucking trust a guy named
You know what? They're like 14 years old at this point. They don't have the worldly knowledge we do.
Same mistake that
Zero's kindness, man.
You know,
Animorphs kindness.
what are you gonna do? So they give the morphing power to David. And it quickly becomes clear that David has no interest in doing anything other than like using morphing for his own personal benefit.
Even though his parents have been infested. And
He doesn't give a shit.
he doesn't give a shit.
No.
David's a popcorn nihilist.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Like the first thing he does with his morphing powers is turn into a bird, break into an expensive hotel, and just chill up there without having to pay for it.
Okay.
Like this is just what he decides to do. So he butts
Fuck
heads
the
with
bourgeoisie.
he butts heads with Jake a lot, and he doesn't really respect like the chain of command that is kind of naturally evolved. And so he almost like they take him on a mission, which is a fucking terrible idea, but what are they gonna do? Leave him to his own devices? So they kind of just have to babysit him through this mission. And the problem is the mission that's going on right now is that like a huge like meeting of world leaders is happening in like outside the city. And Visser 3 is planning on Yeah, like a UN. And the Visser 3 is like, what if we just infest everybody at this meeting?
Seems like a good plan.
So they're like, oh god, we have to deal with this like moron and this is happening at the same time. Horrible timing. So they go and try and fucking take care of that, and they get like captured, and David nearly spills the beans to like these guys are humans, like don't fucking kill me, I'll do whatever you want, like 'cause he's a fucking dumb pussy bitch. So they barely make it out of there, and they're like, okay, David, you gotta fucking shape up, you idiot. And so before they leave, because Visser 3 figures out from David starting to talk, you're the human. He still thinks the rest are Andalite bandits, but he's like, they must have given him the morphing power to not kill him. Because he figures out that he's talking like a human, not like, you know, a trained Andalite prince or warrior or whatnot. So he says to David, like, I'll free your parents if you come meet me tonight at your parents' destroyed place and, you know, fucking tell me what I need to know, release them. Everything will be great. You can trust me, wink. So David, being a fucking retard, goes to do it anyways. And so they're all like monitoring him all night to make sure he doesn't actually try and escape, but he does. So he goes after them, and they all basically try and it's like, okay, we're gonna have to fucking do something to stop David from making this huge fucking mistake. And so Marco comes into his room where he's like waiting, and there's like a dead red-tailed hawk in there. And he's like, yeah, I killed Tobias. He was chasing me. Fuck you guys. I have no interest in this fight. I'm killing all of you and using my morphing powers to get rich. I hate all of you.
Did he actually kill Tobias?
Base.
We'll get there. So him...
I don't like that.
yeah, it's pretty great. So him...
David's kind of base.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, I really relate to this character.
I'm sure you do. So there's a big fucking chase. Like, David is like fucking holding his own, surprisingly. And then he ends up fighting Jake on top of the mall. Because they fight first in bird form, and then they demorph on the roof of the mall. David turns into a tiger, or no, David turns into a lion. Jake turns into his tiger, and they fucking go at it.
A lion would kick a tiger's ass.
Well, that's the whole thing. Jake's at a disadvantage here. So what happens is they're fighting, they glass through the glass ceiling of the fucking mall.
Thus electing Hillary.
Yeah. What?
Demerit.
Destroy the glass ceiling.
Fucking demerit.
Oh,
fucking demerit.
yeah.
So bad. You're not allowed to speak for the rest of this fucking presentation. I hate you so fucking much. Anyway, he fucking rips Jake's like artery open, and he's like bleeding out and dying in the middle of the fucking mall. And David just takes off. So they have to like scramble to save.
Every book now.
Dude, there's violence in every one of these fucking books. So Jake is fucking dying. He's like gonna die really soon, and even he's like unconscious, bleeding out. So at worst, he bleeds out and dies. At slightly less worse, he's is stabilized, but he's trapped as a tiger forever.
Right.
So bad times all around. So they kind of like get Cassie to call her parents and let them know that there's a because again they're veterinarians and stuff, and she's like, there's a fucking tiger at the mall. Can we go save him? So they kind of like get him out and get him stabilized and shit like that. But then they're just like, shit, guys, David is like AWOL. This is bad. Like, this is bad. We called this the wrong way. God, there's a lot I can go through here. This is like the first part in the books are like a 3-book part series of like going through this whole fucking
the David saga.
The David saga, yeah. All right.
Let's get to the fucking chase. How do they kill David? I want to know.
Okay. So through a series of events, they basically play to David's like ego, and they pretend that like, yeah, David, you're better than us. We'll give you the morphing cube because they get the morphing cube back from David.
Fair and square.
So fucking schoolyard.
I mean, he's a 13-year-old kid with no sense of fucking intelligence.
I guess so.
If you're gonna fucking beat him, that's the way to do it. So what they
David's
basically
covered in zits in my mind.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
fucking
He's
piece of
just
face.
disgusting. So
Morph him into
the way they
peace.
end up dealing with David is they don't kill him. What they do is they basically, like, he has this like fucking big problem with Rachel because Rachel like threatened him because, like, again, she's like a fucking like Amazonian psychopath. Okay. So when like he starts crossing with them, he's like, look, if you betray us, like, we'll still have time to kill your parents before they get us. Like threatening like that and like fucking pissing him off. So they use Rachel to like bait him into going to this remote island off the coast of where they live to give him the morphing cube. They said, that's where we hid it. We'll give it to you. Please just leave us alone so we can fucking do our shit. Go use them, do whatever you want to do. You know, and whatever reason he believes them, he's like taunting Rachel the whole time. And it's this big fucking ruse. And they basically trap him in rat morph and make him a rat knotlith and leave him on this island in the middle of fucking nowhere.
That's crazy.
And like the last part of this book is just like they're just flying away and hearing him screaming in thought speak. You fucking, how could you do that? Crying and sobbing.
It's like a trash barge, right? They leave him on like this trash.
It's fucking like
island
trash barge
infested
island
with
thing.
rats, and he's just one of the rats.
He's one of the rats
around
on
this trash island.
That's terrible and sad and scary.
And epic and big.
Yeah, fuck yeah, mega.
So
What's happened to our hero David?
well, you know, that's what happens when you fly too close to the sun, man. All right, and that's the Cliff Notes saga of David.
Terrible. That was the worst thing that's ever happened to me or anyone else, let alone David himself.
At least Tobias could fly when he was second.
Wait, I thought so David didn't kill Tobias.
He doesn't end up killing Tobias. He thought he killed Tobias, but he just happened to just like kill a random red-tailed hawk that was near him.
Where the fuck was Tobias while this was going on?
Well,
Tobias
didn't even know any of this was happening.
Tobias is the key for
Nobody
to them
told
making this trap work because he traps all the Animorphs. Like he locks them in this bottle. Like he's like, you all need to morph into cockroaches except for Rachel. I'll lock in this bottle so you can't interfere. But he still assumes that Tobias is dead, but he's still alive. So Tobias releases them and they spring the trap on him.
Okay.
Read the books if you want to know exactly how it happened. Yeah, cool.
Okay, is the tone of this supposed to be like, haha, fuck you, David, you
No,
fucked us up?
the tone of this is like,
the tone of this is I can't believe we had to do this.
the tone of this is like
thing.
everyone is haunted by. They're like books where like they have nightmares about this situation for like books and books after this, and like this haunts them forever.
Okay,
it's super
so
fucked
it's
up.
understood to be terrible.
Yeah, no, this is like one of the first big lines they have to cross, and there's a huge fucking just like ethical debate for a while on how they're going to take care of this.
I'm very curious if David pops back up in the narrative, but perhaps we'll see as we go.
So, okay. The next thing we're going to talk about quickly, because I don't want to waste too much time, is the Hork-Bajir Chronicles. This is another book like the Andalite Chronicles. This one takes place even before the Andalite Chronicles. This is the story of how the Hork-Bajir homeworld fell to the Yerkes. There's really not a whole bunch to go through here. I mean, there could be, but I'll just keep it brief for the sake of, you know,
I don't know much about
time.
the Hork-Bajir yet.
Yeah, so the Hork-Bajir, this is where we learned a lot about them. So the book follows two characters. There's a Hork-Bajir named Dak Hame, who is the grandfather of Jara Hame, the free Hork-Bajir that we met up there. And then the other character is Aldrea. She is a female Andalite and the daughter of Ciro, the guy who gave the Yerkes morphing power.
Oh, yeah.
So this book takes place like very, very, very soon after the Yerkes become a threat. And so they're kind of like sent on another like bullshit get out of our way, you fucked up society mission. Go look at this Hork-Bajir race. They're like this backward race of like, you know, dumb, stupid aliens, and like maybe the Yerkes might want them, who knows, but like just get out of the way so we can fucking focus on cleaning up this problem you caused. So much like everybody else that we've met from Andalites, Aldrea longs to be part of this conflict. She wants to clear her father's name. She wants to prove that she's like, you know, not worth paying attention to. The difference is there are like gender roles in Andalite society. So she's supposed to be a scientist even though she wants to be a warrior. So they're trying to tell her basically to get fucked.
Fucking STEM majors. Yeah.
2020 Andalites.
So
get with it.
they're basically essentially banished to this planet just to do like studying like the flora and fauna and whatnot. It's not seen as like a big fucking problem because the Hork-Bajir themselves are a very simple, unintelligent race, and despite the fact that they're covered in blades and shit, like they're herbivores. They use the blades for climbing and for like harvesting bark off of trees, and that's what they eat. They eat bark.
They look like B-Sharp, the Pokemon, right?
They're like giant. Oh God,
They're like big fucking like lizard monsters.
Yeah.
Just with like their like heads and like hands and tails are like covered.
Everything's
in, like,
covered in
blade
like spikes and blades and stuff. They're like they're like fucking crazy
But
dinosaur
they're just
people.
like bark eating like.
I'll edit in photos. You'll know
plesiosaurs.
what it looks like at home. You won't have to ask this question. So, but they're like a very peaceful species, and they're not very intelligent. They're like kind of dumb. But Aldrea makes friends with Dak, and Dak is what his people call a seer. A seer is like a rare exception that has like significantly more intelligence. And so they can kind of like talk on an equal ground. And she starts like, she's fucking bored and lonely on this fucking planet full of nobody but her brother and her parents. So she kind of just starts talking with Dak, and they swap stories about like how their culture works and stuff like that. And everything's great until the fucking Yerkes show up and kill her whole family.
Ah, shit.
So Ciro dies, her brother dies, her mom dies. So it's just her and Dak now. And they're just like, oh fuck, these Yerkes are fucking wrecking train. Like the Hork-Bajir are literal tree huggers. They're getting fucking stomped. They've never fought before in their lives. So the Hork-Bajir, again, they're simple. So they have like a lot of like myths and shit. And they believe there's two deities on the planet, Mother Sky and Father Deep. So Mother Sky is just like the sky. The sky is like a deity. It provides like water and like, you know, life and stuff like that. And Father Deep is like where the earth comes from. And Father Deep itself is like this big, massive fucking canyon on the planet. And this is like another deity to them. And they fear Father Deep because monsters lie in there. And so you can't go in Father Deep or you'll fucking die. But in this conflict, it gets so bad, they really don't have anywhere else to go except Father Deep to escape the fucking onslaught of these Yerkes, like killing and infesting like all their people. So Dak and Aldrea go into Father Deep. Yes.
Well, I just want to say, so this is very early into the conflict between the Yerkes and the Andalites.
Yeah, this is like a couple years at
Not
most.
the Animorphs. This is early into the conflict of the Yerkes.
Yeah, the Andalites. The Andalites.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
So at what are the Yerkes controlling? Like at this point?
the Yerkes are they're not even mostly the Yerkes don't, all they have really right now are Ged controllers for the most part, and they're basically just attacking with stolen Andalite technology. They haven't even developed like their own ships. They're a very small band of Yerkes at this point. There's not a lot going on.
One Andalite came down and they got the technology from him for like space travel, I assume?
Yeah, he shared like all their technology on how to travel. He's the one who created the Kandrona rays so they could leave the world and stuff like that. Everything about
He really gave them a fucking hand or two.
Yeah, he's pretty dumb.
Cool. Did it with the best of intentions.
Exactly. That's why you never be nice to anybody. So they go into Father Deep, and they see all these monsters, and they find out there's an advanced race of aliens living in Father Deep called the Arn. And the Arn are the original inhabitants of the Hork-Bajir homeworld. And they like live underground, but the surface of the planet still needed to be like taken care of because the ecosystem's very fragile. So they created the Hork-Bajir to like take care of the environment and stuff up there, like harvesting the trees and shit like that, and purposely made them retarded so they wouldn't ask questions and go looking for them.
Not that nice though.
Yeah, they're kind of dicks. So they eventually convinced the Arn to like give them control of all the monsters they created to fight back against the invading Yerkes and teach the Hork-Bajir how to fight. And this basically they're again exposed to the horrors of war and how bad everything is. There's a huge fucking bloodbath. And Aldrea contacts the Andalite home planet using ARM technology. She's like, you got to come here and help. And you're like, well, you're a woman and Ciro's daughter. We don't fucking care. Fuck you. And so they don't come and help. And so for 7 months, they fight by themselves, just like these fucking tree huggers and like these weird genetic abominations, and they're getting fucking steamrolled. And during this time, the Yerkes are like mining the planet, getting resources and developing the Draken beams and their ships and all this stuff. So all the Animorph, or like all the Yerk technology is developed by the Andalites just basically ignoring this huge fucking problem because they're sexist, basically. So
The Andalites suck. Like, they're shit.
they're not all great. What can I say? So eventually, they realize that shit is bad on the Hork-Bajir homeworld, and maybe they should do something about it. So the guy who comes to lead a strike force against the Yerkes is War Prince Alaron, Alvin Gore's commanding officer from the Andalite Chronicles. Right. So they land, and they get fucking steamrolled. They were not expecting the level of resistance because they're infesting so many of the Hork-Bajir now. They have like really good shock troopers, and there's just like so many of them more now compared to what they were expecting. So in order to win this conflict, Alaron develops what's called a quantum virus, which is basically designed to murder all of the fucking Hork-Bajir with a virus.
I guess it really was man-made. How is it quantum, though? What does that mean?
I don't know why it's called a quantum virus, but it is.
It's just funny because I just tweeted a joke about a quantum virus like yesterday. Unrelated.
There you go.
Okay. How is it not just a normal virus?
I mean, it just sounds cooler when you put quantum in front of it.
How is the coronavirus a corona? It's just a virus.
That's just a name for the virus.
Yeah.
So you can't just call something quantum. Quantum
And
means
just
something.
like the coronavirus, we don't have to worry about the quantavirus because it's not going to affect us. Because we dealt with it last year.
It's quantum. It is a quantum virus. That's why we're asking about
Yeah.
it.
It's just a
It
cute
just means
nickname.
that half of you exist and half of you doesn't.
It's just
If you
fucking
get-
cool. It just
Like
sounds...
the virus exists in a state
If
of
the Andalites just
superposition.
create a virus,
Yeah.
that's like I could create a virus in my
Alright.
free time. But a quantum
It
virus...
is kind of a stupid name.
Okay. We can all agree on
Well,
that.
the Andalites suck at everything. Too. They just suck at naming things too.
I mean...
So sorry. So they made a virus to kill the Hork-Bajir.
The Hork-Bajir, yes.
Okay.
To basically wipe out the entire species so that the Yerkes don't have shock troopers.
Okay. So they're
Yeah.
they're doing
They're,
fucking
they're,
genocide
they're,
now.
they're going full Solarian here.
Against
Okay,
an innocent
but they
species.
never do that to the humans.
Right.
though.
No.
So, Aldrea at this point, she's like has like a good relationship with Dak and all these other people because she's been fighting with them for the better part of a year. So she revolts against her own people to stop this virus from being deployed. But fails, and it is deployed, and all of the fucking remaining like Hork-Bajir, with the exception of some that escaped the planet, are gone.
Jesus Christ.
So at this point, she's trapped on this planet because like there's nobody there anymore. Ugh. So she becomes a Hork-Bajir Nothlit and stays with Dak, and they just hide in Father Deep forever.
Badass.
And that's how that book ends.
Damn.
And Alaron is disgraced because like even by Andalite standards, like that's not culturally okay, guys.
Is this why he was the disgrace?
This is why he's disgraced because like the Andalites believe that the fact that they made a virus is propaganda from the Yerkes.
What?
Even though
Wait, but they actually disgraced that guy because he did in fact do that.
they disgraced him, but people don't know why. Like during the Andalite Chronicles, they don't understand why Alaron
The
is.
High Command knows that
They
that
know,
happened.
but they deny it publicly and say that it's Yerk propaganda
By
to
the way,
discredit them.
Quick question: is there a leader of the Andalites? Is there a president, a king?
The Andalites have an electorate that governs them.
All right.
So that's all that's said. They never go into more detail than that. Okay.
These guys are
They're fucked.
bad.
They're not good.
I just to
Dude,
put
the Andalites are like late capitalism embodied.
This last development
Yeah,
has truly removed any chance of
Yeah.
redeeming them
The-
as like a
chemical
sympathetic.
warfare. Okay, to put it simply in a phrase, I don't like that.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, dude.
By the way, Tom, I don't know if you're aware of it. I just want you to know that this is the image that I most associate with Animorphs. It's this image of a man from Super Smash Bros. Melee player morphing into the B button because he just uses the B button.
What is the subtitle?
It says, "P.S. Leffen, I ain't done yet." It's a Super Smash Brothers player.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. We're closing in on the end.
Redeem this.
Here we
Make
go.
the war crimes
I'm
not
trying.
that bad.
Not that bad.
Not that bad. Not that bad. Not that bad.
I wish I had better news. I wish I had better news for you. Okay, so I'm kind of just gonna go bullet point through this pretty quickly. If you want to know more, read the fucking books.
Wait. Oh, I just need to know. A quick temperature check. Are the war crimes going up or are they going down from here on out?
Everything's going up.
Okay.
Everything's going up.
It's going ripple X.
To the moon. To the moon. To the moon.
To the moon.
All right. I don't think we ever actually do go to the moon, which is sad.
War crimes.
War crimes, more crimes.
Exactly.
That's that.
All right.
Andalite motto.
So we'll pick back up in the main series proper with the introduction of Krayak. So Krayak is like the opposite of the Ellimist. The Ellimist and the Krayak are like eternal enemies. They've been fighting for fucking ever. The Ellimist wants to like subtly guide species and help them grow and flourish. The Krayak just wants to destroy stuff because he's grumpy, I guess. he just likes wiping shit out.
The Krayak is like, isn't he just like a big blob with an eye on it?
Yeah, he's inspired by the Eye of Sauron. Like
Yeah,
if you want to imagine what the Krayak, I mean, both the Ellimist and the Krayak don't have like true physical forms. They're kind of like omnipotent and are anywhere and everywhere at once. Yeah.
So while the Ellimist is kind of helping the Animorphs and stuff to do various things, is the Krayak either helping the Yerkes or is he like attacking the Animorphs in some subtle fucky shit?
So the way this works is that the conflict is explained by the Ellimist in this book. Is that the Krayak and the Ellimist have been enemies forever, pretty much. And back in the day, they used to fight directly, but that ended up destroying like vast portions of the entire galaxy because there's like two gods going at it. So they both came to the decision that they can't fight directly because that would kind of fuck up both of their goals. So instead, they play a series of games. It's a series of proxy battles. So everything the Ellimist has been doing this whole time isn't really to help out the goodness of heart. He's just trying to fuck over the Krayak. He's making subtle little movements to win this game that they're playing.
I'm sorry. So if the Krayak doesn't want like the galaxy wiped out, then he isn't just an agent of like pure like death and destruction.
No,
then.
it's like enslavement and like control and
Okay.
like he's
Some sort of
just,
lawful evil plan, perhaps.
Yeah, he's a weird guy.
Okay.
It goes over a lot more of it in the Amish Chronicles, but I didn't include it here just because like there's a lot to do.
It's not really relevant at all. To what
It's just
happens in
really
Animorphs.
it's like the most mind bender book of all of them.
I read that one.
That one's really fucking cool. Like the Ellimist unironically started life as a gamer. That's not a lie.
He also started life as a bird on a population that have fucking talons that clamp down onto things, and the whole population of bird people flap their wings to keep their
They do.
floating
This is
continents
true.
afloat.
Yeah.
This is like
It's
the dumbest
fucked
thing
up.
I've ever
Yeah.
heard. No, I think you're making this shit up.
How would a society like that ever come into being? It wouldn't. It makes no sense. Don't worry about
The
it.
Amish Chronicles is like the most like drug-fueled book out of all of this
I
series.
enjoy it.
Shit gets really fucked. Like the Ellimist gets his powers by being absorbed by like some weird like planet-like entity that kind of like absorbs the memories of everything it's ever captured, but he somehow like fuses with it and
Like,
becomes
takes over or
omnipotent.
something,
It's
yeah.
fucking crazy
Koala
shit.
bears sure are cute. Wouldn't you like to be one for an afternoon?
Get 12 fascinating issues of Animorphs for the low price of $19.95. Get the tiger poster absolutely free.
Dude, platypus? It's like a fur, but it lays eggs? What? Cool! Let's talk
Yeah.
about it.
Anyway, war crimes in this god planet.
Yeah, you know. So,
War crimes,
War crimes, war crimes, war crimes.
yeah.
Cry.
Yeah. So, the Animorphs are dragged into a conflict that's being played out between the Ellimist and Krayak. So, there's a species on like the other side of the fucking galaxy called the Iskarut. And this is a very valuable species. The Ellimist wants to save them. The Krayak wants them wiped out. And it's not exactly explained why in the beginning. But the Ellimist kind of explains, like, this is the Krayak, this is what he does, he's fucking bad. Our game we're playing right now is that we're going to both pick a team of 7 people to fight. And whoever wins gets to decide what happens to this species, the Iskarut. So he transports them to the planet of the Iskarut homeworld. Yes.
What's so good about the Iskarut?
We will get to it in a second. They
But
find
also,
out.
there's only 5 or 6 Animorphs.
Yeah, so they take the Animorphs, Axe, and then Eric the Chi.
Oh.
He's like their only other ally.
Oh.
Okay.
So that's their 7, and then the Krayak chooses 7 Howlers. Now the Howlers, as you might recall, are the species that killed the Pemalites, which created the Chi.
Right.
Eric never comments on this, which
That's odd.
is weird.
That's strange.
But you would think he would.
Okay.
But there's really nothing that's brought up about that. Probably. Who the fuck knows? There's a lot. Another interesting dimension is that like the last like 30 or so books, except for the last ones, were all ghost written by other authors because she was working on 2 series at the same time.
Oh.
So-
What was the other series?
Mistworld or
Everworld.
Everworld
was the other series.
So she had no creative input?
No. She had like
Her-
detailed outlines for all the books.
Okay.
But the actual writing was done by a sequence of ghost writers.
Wasn't like
for-
her husband one of the ghost writers?
Her husband helped with the entire series, like
Okay.
conceptually and stuff like that. I don't
All
know
the good stuff. Am I right, man? That's what I'm fucking
That's
talking
probably what
about.
happened.
Yeah.
She was like animals, and he was like Star Trek.
What about Warcraft and like crazy dome ships and like sci-fi subspace though? And she's like,
And like, what if there was a voice inside your head that was screaming while it died?
We really don't know what the division of labor was like on this series, but
K.A. Applegate, I caught a great thermal. I felt so free.
those
Her
thermals.
husband. And then my fucking talons exploded in my bones.
one would think. But who knows? She seems to be a nerd herself, so I will not put any words in her mouth, but I would assume
It's just a theory.
I've never met a smart woman, but the possibility exists.
it's true.
Okay.
You never know.
It's like getting caught in the Wacom Z space.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
impossible.
Unlikely, unthinkable, but theoretically, I guess
It's about as
possible.
rare. It's about as rare. Okay, so they go to this fucking planet, and the Eskarut are these really fucking weird, obnoxious, like, bizarre-looking aliens, and they are like
I love them.
peak capitalism.
Yes.
Everything
I
in
knew
their
it.
society has a price tag. Everything is for sale.
Yeah,
Ferengis.
They're super fucking. They're basically like Ferengis. They're super fucking obnoxious, and the Animorphs are confused. Like, why the fuck are these things worth even like anyone's time? Like, sure, like there's like basic ethical consideration, but like, why would we be involved in like a conflict between 2 gods over these guys?
Yeah.
They're fucking goofy. So it's very. Their whole society seems very backwards.
Wipe
and
them
makes
out,
sense.
Ellimist. They're too goofy.
Yeah, there's just, there's only so much you can take. So they encounter the Howlers, which are these like really fucking, like, they're basically a species that was created by Krayak himself to be his shock troopers to carry out his fucking dirty work.
So are they physically
Aren't they like
intimidating?
magma men?
They're drawn as like oddly photoshopped as like magma sort of looking people.
That doesn't
it's not
make sense.
really explained
Okay.
what exactly they are. They're just like bad dudes. Even one of them.
Or like corn pop.
Like corn pop.
Yeah. The worst
Corn
thing
Pop
possible.
was.
I like to imagine. Yeah.
So even one of these Howlers can like take all of them on at once.
Wait,
Okay.
what are the peak capitalist guys?
The Iskarut.
Joe Biden is an Iskarut.
Yeah.
Fair.
Peak capitalist.
Shut the fuck up, everybody.
Okay.
So they're kind of just like, shit, guys. How are we gonna beat these guys? They're way fucking strong. They eventually do kill one by themselves, and the way they kill it is that Jake demorphs and acquires it. And one of the things you have to know about when you acquire something is when you're acquiring it, it kind of goes into a state of like lull. And this is the way that they can like acquire like a really dangerous animal without it like fucking wrecking them while they're touching it. And so it kind of like temporarily pacifies this Howler. And then they fucking boot it off a building and it fucking dies. Which is pretty fucking metal. But you do what you gotta do. Especially when you're halfway across the galaxy. And so...
Oh no, baby! I didn't roofie you. I was just
Yeah.
acquiring your animal.
It's fine.
So fucking sick.
They find out that the they basically everything is for sale on the Iskarut homeworld, including memories. Memories are a big trade deal on the Iskarut planet. Memories are super valuable. So what they do is they trade their memories for memories of other Howlers to learn what they're like. And they find out that they're a hive mind created by Krayak himself. So they all collectively have thousands of years of battle experience, which is why they're so fucking strong. All of them have the experience of each other.
Also, they're made of fucking magma. That helps also.
Definitely. So
one would think.
what happens is that their plan is like, well, the Howlers are stronger than anything we have to fight them. So let's morph a Howler, you know? So they do that. Jake morphs the Howler that he acquired, and he realizes that they're children. They have no idea what they're doing. Krayak has like created them to just like think everything is just a fun little playtime game. They have no idea what death is or anything. It's all just, and like they murdered a kid essentially without realizing it.
It sounds exactly like Pyro from Team Fortress 2, who perceives the world in a delightful, happy-go-lucky way.
Why do I answer you when you put God damn
That
it.
wasn't a question.
I know, but I just should ignore you from now on. So what their plan to win is that like, okay, they're a hive mind. So if we can, now I've morphed a Howler, my memories will now become part of their hive mind, and they will realize what they're doing and how fucked up it is. And so once Krayak catches on that this is their plan, he murders all the other Howlers before that information can become part of the hive mind, thereby allowing them to win the conflict.
Hooray!
Wow.
Yeah.
All
So-
the children
All the
died.
other children die. Yeah. Super fucked, right? Super fucked.
War crimes! War crimes! War crimes! War crimes!
This is the part where I remind you these books are written for 9-year-olds.
Wait,
They could die too, just like the Howlers.
what was the logic? Why did he decide to kill all of his own team members, thus losing the game instantly?
Well, I think it was that they became useless once they were like infected with like the
Right.
knowledge of the reality of like
Yeah,
what
they
were
realize
doing.
the
Like,
context
they're already
of
dead
what
to
they're
him,
doing.
basically. Like,
And he kills the ones there before that information can spread to the rest of the hive mind,
Okay, that
and therefore
makes sense.
ruin all of his shock troopers,
Okay.
is the idea. And they find out that the reason the Iskarut are being battled over like this is because the Iskarut are actually Yerkes. There are species of Yerkes that split off from the main Yerkes thousands and thousands of years ago. And instead of becoming a parasitic species, they created artificial hosts and have a symbiotic relationship with them. So if they ever came into contact with the Yerkes, there'd be another path for the Yerkes to take besides infestation. And so the Ellimist wants that to eventually happen to kind of pacify the species of the Yerkes, while the Krayak wants them out of the way because he likes the Yerkes destroying stuff because that's his MO.
So the goofy shells or whatever, are those like robots? Or are they
They're
some
just
sort
they're
of-
just like a artificial kind of like biological construct that the Yerk
They can possess.
the
I mean-
Iskarut Yerk themselves use
There's
as a
the
host.
fucking answer to our problems right there.
Yeah. Right.
Damn. Okay.
So that's why the
Already,
Ellimist wants
your
them.
Peace movement is coming.
Indeed.
It's actually unrelated.
Oh,
okay.
All right.
You would think, right? But like, I don't know. Well,
I get the feeling the Iskarut are about to get wiped out.
well, here's the thing. The Ellimist is like playing on a time scale like unrelated to the rest. Like he says in this book that like because like in like 300 years they will collide, and once they do, it'll drastically change the direction of the Yerk species in general. So like this is like a super long game play
So
for him.
in some way, we have like a guaranteed happy ending if that is to remain true.
Sure, but like
I mean,
Out
for
of-
the universe,
Right.
not for humanity.
Humanity could get wiped out before that, potentially.
Right.
Over
you
something,
never
yeah.
fucking know. Okay.
Can I get to the part where Visser 3 did nothing wrong, by the way? It's starting to seem like everyone has done
I don't
everything
know about
wrong.
that. I don't think it's coming.
I
think it's a ruse.
might have been lying, and the shirt might be propaganda.
Okay.
All right. So we don't have to talk too much about the Yerk peace movement. There's basically just a Yerk named Aftran, who from way earlier in the series, like temporarily gained control of Cassie, but they kind of like vibed on the fact because like Aftran, Aftran was a Yerk that wanted to just escape the conflict. She didn't want to fight. And so they kind of like Cassie let her go because she's a fucking tree hugger, even though the rest of the team didn't want her to. And she just comes back here, and you find out that there is like now a pretty significant coalition within the Yerk Empire that wants the war to stop. And they come back later eventually in like the end game sort of. But that's basically it. Is that there's just this peace movement that's happening. There's like a bunch of Yerks now that like don't want to keep fighting because like again they are the underdogs in this conflict. It's an uphill battle they are fighting, and the book is just like Aftran gets captured, and if they probe Aftran and figure out what she knows. They'll know about them, and they're not in the events. Blah blah. So they go rescue her, and she can't go back to her planet or anything because they find out she's a traitor. So they actually give Aftran the morphing ability and have her morph into, I believe it's a whale, and she just lives her life as a whale Nothlit, just to escape the war, live peacefully.
So she's a not. I was gonna say, if you're a Yerk and you become and you can morph, do you have to go to the pool every 3 days still, or like what does the timer stop counting down when you're not a Yerk? Or is that, did they just never come butt up against
It's
that
never
issue?
brought up.
Okay.
I would assume there's probably still a time limit, just like you would still have to eat food, whether you're in human form or not.
The Yerk finally morphs into a whale, and it's like, thank you guys, you saved my life. I can kind of go live
Instantly
my life.
killed.
Harpoon comes off, and there's a Nippon soldier getting ready to turn
I mean, I wouldn't put it
blubber.
past the series. Like, it's sunk to lower depths. Who fucking knows? Alright, just quickly, the anti-morphing ray is an invention made by Visser 3. He tries to basically make a technology that will force demorphing.
Hey man, not cool, dude.
Not fucking cool, right? So they first are just like, how are we going to destroy this thing? And they're like, fuck, we can't destroy it, because if we do, he'll know that it works and that we're afraid of it. So we can't do that. We have to find a way around this without like tipping him off that this is like actually a good idea. So what they decided instead, they're like, Tobias is a hawk. We will have him acquire Axe and morph an Andalite, and so when they try and demorph him, nothing will happen because he's a hawk, and they'll think it doesn't work. And so this is a great idea, and does work, but unfortunately they're not able to rescue him once he's there, and he's brutally tortured for a fucking long time, and is like mentally scarred forever.
War crimes.
War crimes.
War crimes. War crimes.
And he never recovers, and there's like a whole book of dealing with like the fallout.
What do you mean he never recovers?
There's a whole book where he just talks about like he's still like fucked up by this whole experience, and it haunts him all the time, and like he's like again trying to like run away from the comic because it's just so fucking bad. Everybody is broken by the end of the series, pretty much. Okay. Then we have the Hork Bajir.
Dude, aren't pandas cute?
Dude, I love pandas so much. Okay. Oh god, this is a fucking weird one. Okay, the Hork Bajir Rebellion. This is like, you find out, they go check up on, the Free Hork Bajir, and they freed up here. They find out that Jarahame and Ket had a child who's named Toby. Toby's named after Tobias, because Tobias was the one who helped free them. And Toby, like Dak, is a seer. So, Hork Bajir, they age pretty rapidly, and they don't live pretty short lifespans. Kind of like Solarians, but dumb instead of smart. So, Toby has been, unknowns to the Animorphs, staging like attacks on the Yerkes to free more of their people. So there's a whole little fucking colony of free Hork Bajir just chilling in this fucking crazy thing with everybody. And they didn't expect that, but they want to basically join the fight and like free the rest of their people. But they can't do it because they don't have any weapons. And then some really fucking weird shit happens. So the Arn, from the Hork Bajir Chronicles, finds their way to Earth. And it's like, how? I don't fucking know.
I'm sorry, what was
Remind me who the Arn is?
The Arn are the advanced race of species that lived in Father Deep that created the Hork Bajir.
Right.
And so...
Like a precursor to the...
grandfather alien.
They literally created the Hork Bajir.
Yeah, they genetically created the Hork Bajir in order to manage their planet. So the Arn is still alive.
When you say the Arn, what do you mean? Like a couple members of the species?
There's a couple of them, but there's one Arn that comes to Earth.
Okay.
He has a name. I don't remember what it is. I didn't write it down. It was like
Arnie.
Mr. Arn.
Yeah, Mr. Arn comes to Earth, and like I guess has somehow found out that this whole rebellion thing is happening. And he wants to basically arm the rebellion. The Arn wants to arm them. There is a secret cache of weapons back on the Hork Bajir homeworld from the rebellion. And Aldrea, the Andalite from Hork Bajir Chronicles, knows where it is, but she's dead. And so...
So she knew,
She knew where it was. But... he made like a fucking construct that has her consciousness in there.
Oh, right.
So you can find out where it is, but it needs a host in order to inhabit. So Cassie takes on the consciousness of Aldrea and leads them to this weapon cache.
Synthetic consciousness, right?
Yeah, it's a copy of her consciousness created synthetically that needs a host body in order. So like she has two consciousnesses in her mind, and they go to the planet and they find the weapon cache. Right. Yeah, it's a whole big thing. There's a lot more to that, but that's the basic part. Is that like the Hork-Bajir are primed to like fucking do shit. Okay, we're almost done. Guys. We're getting to the end.
But we're only like
prediction for the end. War crimes.
Things must accelerate, I assume.
The endgame part here is like the last couple books. A lot of the last couple books, this is where they're all majority ghost written. A lot of them are just filler.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're interesting stuff, but most of the content of them don't have a lot to do with the main story. That's kind of like my biggest complaint is that like things start to pick up and then there's just gaps of just like, kind of does a Steven universe, you know, sort of thing. Yeah. We're balls deep in something and then it's like, let's check up on the fucking humans. Like, I don't fucking care. Not enough to be uninteresting, but there's like an underlying like I want to fucking see how this all gets.
Did you already talk about Visser?
We're doing that right now.
Okay.
So Visser is another one of the Chronicles books. This is the only book in the series from the perspective of the Yerkes, and this is a story of Visser 1 and how she found Earth and basically started this entire fucking shit. So there's two stories going on in Visser essentially at the same time. The first story is a trial of Visser 1. Because after the failure on Lyra and a bunch of other shit, she's basically seen as a traitor. And so they're putting her on trial to see if her allegiances really lie with humanity, or not with humanity, with the Yerkes, or if she's kind of been fucking them over. And the accuser is Visser 3, because remember, they hate each other. So he's like jonesing for the opportunity to fucking knock her down a few pegs. And basically gain control of the invasion on Earth, because he has a whole other set of ideas of how he wants to do this. The second story is the backstory to how Visser 1 found Earth, because she's basically giving her testimony of what happened and all that kind of stuff.
Is this where we meet Visser 2 by any chance?
Not yet. He's not in this.
Really?
It's literally just them two for the most part.
That's weird.
The book starts with Visser 1 as like a lowly fucking sub-Visser, like sub-Visser like a couple hundred something, like really fucking in a backwater fucking post in the middle of nowhere. And the whole book starts with back in the Andalite Chronicles when they found out about Earth, they relayed a message. And it was Visser 1, at the time, fucking nobody, who received the transmission and goes out to try and find this fucking Class 5 planet. And she takes one of her subordinates, SM-293, and they go together on a bug fighter and go looking for this planet against the orders of her superiors, because they think that this is like either an exaggeration or bullshit or not real. And she's determined to make a name for herself and rise through the ranks by being the hero who finds the mythical Class 5 species and becomes like the best.
Woo!
Yay.
Noble goals.
I guess that's what happened.
So they get to Earth and they find like, oh my god, there's billions of fucking people here and they're fucking cavemen. This is like perfect. Like we got it fucking locked in. And so they kind of go down, they land in the middle of the fucking Gulf War and they're like, I mean, these are like effective weapons. They could kill our shock troopers and stuff, but like, we still got a fucking edge on these guys. So basically the idea here is that the Yerkes just think humans are fucking crazy. Because like our brains are just like so chaotic and like there's like, they have two hemispheres and they're like two different sides of things and they're like communicating back and forth and like there's so much overstimulation. There's so much conflict in these minds that you don't know what to do. They're fucking nuts. They just think we're insane. You also realize that Yerkes don't really have much in terms of culture, considering like the fucking huge fucking technological spike, going from like basically nothing to like space travel. They like watch like television and they don't understand why you would do this. They're like, why would you make up all these weird lies? And like at first they watch Star Trek, like they're gonna fucking murder us. We're gonna get destroyed. How do they travel without fucking zero space? So they just like they don't understand like culture, like they don't understand art. They're kind of like solely focused on getting bodies right now, and their culture hasn't really evolved into anything more like entertainment or anything like that. They're very mission focused, clearly. I like them. So Visser 1, whose name is Idris, I believe Idris 493, not really that important. Idris is fascinated by this fucking crazy madness that is humanity. He's determined to study us, figure out our weakness, and deliver us to the Council of 13 and become God. So she spends like a year on Earth with Essem, her subordinate, and they take on a couple different hosts. It's implied that they're like in Hollywood. They like take the hosts of like these like actors and like producers and stuff, and so they kind of get a better understanding of like how human culture works. And this is where Visser 1 figures out that like we all have this innate desire to belong. Like we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, and we all have like this, that's kind of the chink in our armor, so to speak. And that's where the idea for the sharing and everything comes from, like the subtle infiltration. But like her fascination and Essem's fascination with humans kind of goes like a little too far, because remember, Yerkes have never dealt with hosts as complicated psychologically as human beings. So they start like getting really invested in human culture because it's like so fucking different from their own. And her and Essem actually conceive a child together, like their hosts.
Oh, okay.
Damn, that's
And
fucked
so
up.
Visser 1 has 2 children. And you realize that not only is the reason they're trying to like subtly infiltrate Earth is because like we just outnumber them so much, but it's because she doesn't want her children to die in the conflict.
Shit.
Damn.
And so Visser 1 during the trial finds one of her children and brings them up. It's like,
Oh,
look what you
God.
fucking did. And so there's this whole big like battle of like fucking like betrayals and stuff going on during this trial as Visser 1 tries to discredit Visser 3 and vice versa, and they're going at it. Like at one point, Visser 3 like sicks a bunch of animals on them and kills them to make it look like he's killed the Andalite bandits to make his presence look better. But because Visser 1 at this point is Marco's mom, she like sneaks out, gets a cell phone, it's like, Marco, it's Visser 1, come attack. You need to save your mom. And so the real Animorphs come in, and then everyone realizes Visser 3 is like a liar, so then he gets put on trial as well.
Oh boy.
It's fucking madness. It's crazy. There's so much more. This book is like so fucking good. Like if you only read one book, read this one. It's so fucking great. I don't even want to spoil too much, especially since we don't have a lot of time. But basically, to wrap it all up, is that both Visser 1 and Visser 3 are found guilty and are sentenced to die.
Oh.
But
Lol.
they're too valuable to kill right now because they're in the middle of so much
post.
fucking shit. So they're just like, if you fuck up again, you're both dead. So Visser 1 is reassigned to a different planet to infest. Because she has too much emotional ties here. It's clearly not fucking growing.
Compromise.
So a planet called Anati, which is like another, it's not gone into very much detail, but that's like where she goes. And then Visser 3 is put in charge of the invasion on Earth, which means things start to accelerate much more quickly. Because here's the end game. This is when things are going to get really fucking crazy. So things really start to become vastly accelerated when Marco's dad, who's an engineer, which has been used here and there in like fucking like throwaway books as like a plot device setup. So we knew he was an engineer. He accidentally discovers zero space.
Oh.
And makes a zero space transponder.
He's not
Jesus
simply
Christ.
an engineer, but like a
He's like
big
He's a
engineer.
science.
no, he's a big time engineer. He's got he's fucking smart. So this kicks things into fucking overdrive because now like we're kind of like developing the beginnings of technology to detect like all the fucking ships that are stealthily in orbit above Earth and all this crazy shit, and we can detect things. So like it's bad for the Earth. So they immediately try and infest Marco's dad, and Marco's like, fuck no, you're not getting my dad too. And so there's a big fucking battle in his house, kind of like with David, where the house gets trashed, and Marco has no choice but to reveal to his father everything that's going on. So now his dad knows everything, including that his wife is still alive. And at this point, he's married to another woman.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And Marcos had to like silently sign off on it, knowing that his real mom is still alive.
Yeah.
So that complicates matters significantly. Okay. Another thing, like, from this point, like, they need to just like, God, where should I even begin? There's a lot to go. These are like where things start getting really fucking dense.
It's like the last thing with the last bullet.
I know. Sorry.
It's fine. No, please.
Okay. So, Visser 1, like Marco's mom, eventually is brought back to Earth to be executed because apparently the Anati thing did not go well, and so they're like, you're fucking dead. So they go to kill Visser 1 and the host, which is Marco's mom, and they end up saving her, but kill Visser 1. So Visser 1's Yerke is dead, while the host is saved. And Marco, in a really fucking messed up move, because his dad's new wife was infested during the attack, and he lies to his dad to say that she's been a Yerke the whole time, so he'll stop loving her and get back with his real dad.
Oh, that's
And it's implied that he feels bad about this for the rest of his life.
Good.
Yeah,
It
sounds about
was
right.
pretty fucking shitty to do.
He could perhaps explain that wasn't true later on. There could be a conversation.
No, there's no
There's
coming back
no
from
going
that.
back from that,
Okay,
dude.
all right.
There's no talking your way out of that
Does
one.
he ever confess to Dad? Listen,
As far as I know, no. It's never brought up again.
What is that about? All right.
War changes people.
What, if he did confess, do you think his dad would be like, "Oh, I understand.
No,
you were in a real tough spot."
It would destroy his relationship with his father forever, which it should.
That's
that
right.
Would be yeah.
Okay, so
There you go.
with Visser 1 executed, Visser 3 is the new Visser 1. So now he's
Where's
the head.
Visser?
Where's Visser 2?
Why isn't Visser 2
Where's
Visser
Visser
1
2?
now?
Where?
We're getting into Visser 2 right now.
Okay.
He's not very interesting. Visser 3 just
I'm
gets...
sorry, but there's just such
I know,
such an
I know.
information gap here. It's glaring.
Visser 2 is just like another guy who was like loyal to Visser 3, who's now Visser 1.
Didn't even know any of this was going on.
Loyal to Visser 3, but he's higher.
Yeah, but he's Visser 1 now.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
They
So
don't...
we don't meet Visser 2 until 3 has already leapt over him.
I mean, yeah, this is like, he's not even mentioned until all the way at the fucking end. And
Okay,
he's just,
all right.
Visser 3's like first plan, now is Visser 1, is like, I just want to fucking start steamrolling things.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is I've already got a bunch of people in place, including Visser 2, in the United States military.
Right.
I want to start nuclear war with China.
Oh, God.
So we can thin the military resistances of Earth.
Makes sense.
Kill a couple billion people, and then just clean house from the rest.
Holy shit.
And that's his plan.
Isn't like the whole point of humans is that there's so many of us? Don't they want there to be more?
Yeah,
Well,
but even
They
with
can
a couple
sacrifice a
hundred-
billion.
Even
easily, I'd
getting,
say.
like, again, most species only have millions of people. So even if you kill half of the human population, you still vastly outnumber most other species that are known at this point, especially in this conflict.
Okay.
So, and again, Visser 3's kind of not the smartest guy. He's kind of like just beat you with a club as opposed to being subtle like Visser 1. So this is kind of like a plan that's in his wheelhouse, you know? Just an excuse to shoot Draken beams at guys, and that's like what he's about. So Visser 2 is in charge of this fucking ship, this like big military submarine armed with nuclear warheads that he's going to have Visser 2 go into Chinese waters and fucking nuke China and start an international conflict. So they have no choice but to board this ship, basically warn all the fucking military personnel on there that this is happening, and then it's like them and the military versus all the controllers that are on there. And so this conflict is averted because Axe basically hijacks one of the plane that has like a nuke on it, and then threatens to bomb the Yerke pool and kill everybody in that entire city, including the families of all the Animorphs, without telling them.
Axe is the
unless
madman.
they
He'll
pull.
do that shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's what... That's
And
the
he-
Andalite MO.
He admits in the book, he's like, he was going to do it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, if they ever found out, they'd never forgive me, but I had to do it. And so this World War III conflict is avoided by threatening all the Yerkes that are on Earth and destroying the pool and basically killing everybody. Okay.
But he doesn't actually do it.
He doesn't actually do. He doesn't have to. Visser
You
1,
wish you
new
could.
Visser 1, pulls the plug on his
Recants.
plan to save the people, because like, who are they going to have left to infest? There's a lot. The Earth is like their big #1 spot right now. So much of their forces are deployed here on Earth, and there aren't a lot of Yerkes compared to Andalites. So like, losing Earth and having their entire pool destroyed would be catastrophic. Set them back so fucking far. So that's
I kind of think Axe should have done it, maybe.
Probably. I mean, there were opportunities that really would have turned the tide of this battle.
So the final thing that Visser 3 does, or Visser 1, new Visser 1 now does, Visser 3/Visser 1 does, is they start testing the blood that all the Animorphs, the Andalite bandits, have shed during battles with them to scan the DNA to try and find if there's any matches. Because at this point, they're starting to suspect that maybe these aren't Andalite bandits after all. And so they start matching their DNA with humans. And they realize, okay, these are all humans. We have to track them down and find them. So this sends the Animorphs into a fucking scramble because all their families are at risk.
Wouldn't that blood have been animal DNA? Because
it's animal DNA, but there are traces of the
when
actual...
you absorb an animal, their DNA enters your blood.
Yeah, it becomes part of your DNA. So it's science mumbo jumbo. It works.
It doesn't really make sense. Like,
no.
Your blood would
Does
be
any of this
gone,
make sense?
fact,
Not really.
Yeah, okay,
but it's within the context of the lore of the universe.
Sure.
It's possible. So that's what they do, and so all of their identities are eventually discovered.
Mm-hmm.
And so this forces them all to fucking scramble. And everybody secures their families except for Jake.
Ooh. Who doesn't give a fuck about his family.
Yeah, like his whole fucking motivation is his brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
so
right.
His brother, because his brother throughout the series has been shown to be rising in the ranks of the Yerke Empire and like becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And at this point, he's like one of Visser 3, now Visser 1's right-hand guys.
Oh, shit.
So as soon as they find this out, like, his parents are immediately infested, and his parents try to murder him while he's at home.
Oh.
And so he has no choice but to flee while everyone else rescues their families. And at this point, Jake gives 0 fucks. He's ready to do whatever is fucking necessary, kill these motherfuckers, burn it all down to the ground, and, like, nobody really knows what to do. He's, like, just fucking, like, depressed and broken, but just, like, I have no empathy left to offer anybody. I'm here to murder.
Like, Axe could have nuked the whole town.
Yep.
But that would have averted nuclear war with China that would eradicate, like, half the Earth's population.
I mean,
maybe he should have done it.
You know?
Maybe he should have done
These are the ethical questions you face in war.
It might have saved lives overall, maybe. Yeah.
These are the lessons 9-year-olds need to learn. Okay.
Future United States Marines.
So they decide the Animorphs still have the Morphing Cube from the whole thing with David. And so they decide now that like the battle is increasing and becoming like more public and open at this point, it's accelerating, they need to recruit more members. They need more Animorphs. They need more troops at this point to fight.
So they've had bad experiences with that.
Yes, and this is a point that they bring up, and they are very hesitant to open the floodgates. And so in a kind of like this is really fucked. Because like Jake has basically decided that like all of their ethical considerations they've been having throughout this entire war no longer apply. They have to murder, they have to kill, they have to lie.
That means they can fuck his animals now.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Waiting.
God, I hate all of you. So what they decide to do is they decide to go to and recruit other children because they're more they won't have like they have a problem, of course, like adults not believing what they're saying and stuff. Kids will be more receptive because like they're kids like them. And they also decide to recruit disabled kids because Yerkes won't be interested in their bodies. They have less chance of being infected if captured.
Sure.
So they go to like a disabled hospital and recruit a bunch of them. And their numbers increase to 23.
Not mentally disabled.
No.
Okay.
But the interesting is that some of them actually heal when they morph back because again, as long as it's not like a genetic defect, you're fine again once you go back to being an animal. Some of them don't, some of them do, depending on the conditions they have.
Right.
So they have like an auxiliary B team now of a bunch of other animals to help them fight.
Kids, they tricked them into being animals. They didn't trick them, I assume, right? They
explain the situation. Yeah. They let them choose. They're not that far gone yet. Okay.
That's next chapter.
That's the next chapter.
Just you wait.
All right. So they go. After they recruit these guys, they go to like a next location, recruit more. Their plan is to like build a big fucking army, but they're actually they're intercepted by Tom, Jake's brother. Who's now like basically second in command after Visser 1 because he's been working with
Visser 2 though.
No, Visser 2 is
not
in the picture.
Still irrelevant.
Still irrelevant.
Okay.
He was relevant for like one paragraph in that last book.
I'm just the messenger.
Yeah,
guys.
Like he must have done something important.
It is a much more interesting ethical dilemma to have your brother be the number 2 guy than like an actual number 2 guy.
They just numbered him Visser 2.
I don't.
It doesn't matter.
This all happens very quickly, so I'm sure they probably don't have time to go through proper protocols to like promote him or whatever. He's essentially Visser 2, and all but name. Tom's Visser 2 at this point. So Tom intercepts them and steals the Morphing Cube from them.
Oh, I don't like that.
So Jake is just like, I have to kill my brother. So he goes to murder Tom and get the cube back because he's just like, I do what I gotta do.
Tom knows Jake is an Animorph?
They all do now.
They all do now. They've
Okay.
discovered their identities with the genetic matching and stuff like that.
Okay.
Shit's all out in the open now. So they actually take all their families and hide them at the Free Hork-Bajir Valley, because again, that's being hidden by the Ellimist powers. So it's like their new base of operations. And their parents are all freaked out because they all know about it now. They're living with aliens. Shit's fucking weird. So they go to get these more Animorphs, basically build an army to fight this like now basically open war. And Tom comes, steals the Morphing Cube so they can't make any more. And Jake is about to kill his brother, but Cassie stops him because she's a bleeding heart. And so now the Yerkes can morph.
Wow.
They have a bunch of more capable
Nice
shock
one.
troopers.
Can I just say that this entire series is full of like, all right, guys, let's end the war. There will be some casualties, but let's end this thing once and for all. No, you can't do that. Here, let's save these guys. Billions more dead immediately. Like direct influence. Like, oh, don't kill this one
This
guy.
anti-war series has made me more bloodthirsty.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything. Decisive action really is where it's at.
Just one after another, it's shown that hesitating for a second will lead to countless miseries.
Hesitation is defeat.
Maybe capitalism and warmongering was right all along. All right, so the Yerkes are now infesting the National Guard. They're trying to like start open conflict and all that good stuff. So they decide to go public. They warn like the governor and everything, like this is all happening. Who's not very receptive to the idea until like the governor's like assistant pulls a Draken beam and tries to kill them all for revealing the truth, and like all of a sudden it becomes a lot more fucking believable. Probably a bad call by him, but you know,
That was a mistake. Yeah.
definitely a bad move. So war is go now. The military is like on the case. There are people fighting, and
Damn.
Jake's
How
just.
do they know who to fight? Like, how can they tell who's?
This is the thing. They have Jake basically says you need to like take all your most trusted troops and lock them away for 3 days before we can do an attack. Because if any of them start freaking out, they're already infected. Okay. All right. Sorry. I just had to make sure I had my order of events right because this is the densest part of the entire fucking series. A lot of shit happens.
Why is it one bullet point then?
One bullet point is actually longer.
I
than
ran
the
out of
others.
space
This
on
is
the
like, it's a-
board,
this is Act
Munchie.
6. We're finally at Act 6 and I'm stuck now.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So in the meantime, while they're waiting for like the 3 days to pass, they get a hold of communication technology because again, Marco's dad has created a Z-Space transponder. So they use it to contact the Andalite He's like, yo, war is go. Please help. And the Andalites are like, no. And the reason they don't want to help is they're just like, we're fighting 2 fronts versus the Anati, which they had already fucked up. They have the upper hand there. And then Earth. We want them to divert all their forces to Earth so we can clean up here really quickly. And then we're just going to bomb in and destroy your planet and just kill all the Yerkes that are left there and basically end the war.
Whoa.
So the Andalites are going to commit genocide on Earth.
They would never do that.
I know, it's so out of
I
character.
don't believe
so
it.
fucking out of character.
There's gotta be a twist.
So basically they realize we're still fucking on our own, Andalites, good for nothing, and they just work together with the military and they figure out another entrance to the Yerk pool, and they're like busing subways of people into the Yerk pool now because like an open infestation. Like shit's going fucking crazy. So they work with the military and basically say we have no choice at this point. We're gonna have to just like hijack one of the trains, fill it with explosives, destroy the entire fucking Yerk pool and all the innocent people in there because we have to fucking stop them.
Yep.
And they do. And it did destroy the entire city fucking sized Yerk pool.
Jesus
Kill
Christ.
thousands of innocent people. And the entire city above it is also heavily damaged. But it's a major fucking thing.
I want to mention, I think like way earlier in the series, there's a part where like the Animorphs realize that for some weird quirk of chemistry, like Quaker oats, like cinnamon oatmeal, is deadly poison to Yerkes. And they could put it in the Yerk pool and kill all the Yerkes if they wanted to, but they're like, no, that's unethical.
Yes.
That would be chemical warfare, and we can't resort to it.
That does
And
happen.
they don't do it, and this is the fucking result.
That would just kill the Yerkes.
Yep.
That would not kill humans.
It would be dishonorable, though.
I mean, a little bit.
So
sure.
now the Andalites are we're gonna just blow up the entire fucking planet.
Look, I'm just the messenger, alright?
I mean, is it even fair to say that, like, is any of those Yerkes actually an innocent Yerk if they're possessing an unwilling...
I would say no.
Of course not. Obviously, they should have put the fucking oatmeal in the fucking pool.
Yeah, you're right. I guess that's true.
I mean, when you put that
Maybe there's
option
some conscientious objectors in that pool of Yerkes and they won't possess anyone because they're like, I don't know.
Every actor in this entire book series is all dark gray. That's the only color in this person's palette.
Exactly. So, yeah, they destroy the Yerk pool. Thousands of innocent hosts are killed. So in response, the Yerks start bombing their hometown, which is just fucking annihilated in response.
Fair enough.
And so they start rebuilding a pool in another location, but at the same time, they bring down the pool ship. It's an aerial, mobile Yerk pool down to the surface of the Earth to help all the forces that are left. Because remember, this is like all their shock troopers are basically on Earth at this point.
Yep.
So this is like the key moment. If they can get rid of the pool ship, then they're really fucked. Because like all of their reserve troops that were up in orbit are now, for a small window of time, on Earth. And if they can destroy this ship, they've basically won. Mm-hmm. So this is like the end game here. This is the make it or break it situation. So they have two goals basically. They need to destroy or disable the ship, and also make sure they need to stop the construction of the new ground-based Yerk pool as well. And so they go for that first because it's a smaller goal to do. And their idea is to just like fucking kill all the Taxons that are building it. Because Taxons, like, they're really good burrowers and stuff. Remember, they lived in like hives and stuff on their home planet. And so they go to do that, and they realize like resistance is a lot easier. And in a weird fucking twist of fate, Arbrun, all the way back up here, who was trapped as a Taxon, ended up on Earth.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, Arbrun's still alive. He somehow survived that. And there's like a bunch of Taxons who want to help them out and fucking help the Earth.
Cool, I guess. Hey, alright. Fantastic.
So they solved that pretty easily. So while they're kind of like planning what to do with Arbrun and the Taxons to like fucking end this pool ship, Tom shows up. And he tries to broker peace with the Animorphs. Because he says, I want to be Visser 1, so I got to get rid of Visser 1.
Okay.
I want to fucking...
What a Visser 2? Okay, I'm
backstab him and take control of this myself.
Visser 2 is like the vice president. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
What a strange thing to say to someone. Imagine you are warring against another country, and then a general comes like, all right, let's do some negotiations. Listen, I want to move up the chain of command in this military operation, so let me help you to do this, so I can rise up to a higher rank in the military and then continue our war. Just help me out real quick.
Inglorious bastards.
Well, I was gonna say like half of like the Middle Eastern leaders that the U.S. like implanted to like when we put them in to get rid of other regimes, and then they just became regimes.
Those may have been warring factions even at that point. I don't know. Look, we all get it. Let's hear the end of the fucking story.
We have a couple more bullet points left to go through.
Yeah.
All right. So he approaches Jake about this, obviously, because Jake has a personal relationship to his host, and so he figures that's the guy to talk to. And Jake reluctantly agrees to his plans, because he basically says, I will get you into the pool ship, so we can disable it without having to destroy it. We can get Visser 1. We can end this war. And, like, what I will do is I will just take a small group of Yerkes in a small ship and leave, and I will never come back to Earth. Okay. But that is my payment for basically allowing this planet to survive.
Sure.
So Jake agrees, but it's very obvious that he's not buying this. Because he just thinks that's fucking bullshit. So basically what happens is that they go through with their plan to attack this pool ship that's on the ground. And they send basically all of the military people that are helping them, as well as all the disabled kid, the auxiliary team, on a suicide mission as a distraction so they can get into the ship and disable it.
Oh, God. That's sad when you say it like that.
Yeah, that's what fucking happens.
Do they know it's a suicide mission?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tom, I'm sorry. I have one question. Since they already had like started recruiting people like the disabled kids, why don't they get like their parents to become Animorphs and like everybody they know, like as
They don't.
Did they lose the cube before?
Yeah,
that?
At this point,
okay.
Tom still has the cube. That's why they only made 23, not like 23,000.
Right.
You know, because like part of the deal is that Tom will give the cube back.
Right.
If they follow through with this fucking plan. So, they sneak aboard the ship. Everybody else fucking dies, pretty much. They all get fucking massacred. Visser 1 is like targeting the auxiliary team specifically, murder them, murder them, murder them.
Cool.
You know, disabled children dying.
Yeah.
For a book for 9-year-olds. It's all good.
Why am I desensitized to this? Like, after all
That's
this,
what
it's just
war is like,
right,
Munchie.
right.
After 35 books of this, it's like,
So
of course all the disabled kids get slaughtered.
Remember when? Okay, it's downright quaint to think of Disembowelment to be a bear. Like, just say, like, oh, way back, all I had to deal with just some dude getting bisected. It was alright.
So once they're on the ship, Jake goes full savage, pretty much. They find like all of the Yerkes that are still in the pool and fucking murders 17,000 or so Yerkes, just fucking kills them.
Quaker oatmeal, just
pretty much
Finally,
does that.
Finally, what he should have done a long time ago.
He ignores the fact that all the ground troops are just being killed because they have more important things to do. And in a kind of like double backstab, as Tom inevitably tries to backstab him, he had like secretly ordered Rachel, the crazy Amazonian lady, to sneak onto his ship that he had, and she murders his brother, kills him.
Tom.
Yes.
Yes.
Tom is dead.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Jake has ordered the Rachel to kill his brother, and then his troops immediately kill Rachel, and Rachel is dead as well.
Wait, was Tom a willing collaborator, or was he?
He was not.
So he just had a bad Yerk in him.
Yeah.
But there was nothing to be done.
There's nothing to be done.
Oh, okay.
So after all of these massive losses, Visser 1 is basically demoralized and surrenders, and the war ends, and the Earth does not have to be destroyed.
So the only Animorph who died was Rachel.
Rachel's the only one who is dead. So after the end of the war, we go into the epilogue. This is like 3 years after the conflict.
What happened to Visser 1?
Visser 1?
The one who was Visser 3 and is now Visser 1.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the epilogue is.
Gives up the war and I assume goes back to Yerkland.
He gives up, leaves Oleron's body. So Oleron is now Oleron again.
Sorry.
And
the Andalite,
Yeah, and so they just like cut immediately after this battle to like what happened over the last 3 years. Like everybody's kind of like older now and shit. Basically, things like on the surface appear good. Like Earth is good. Like we're learning more from the Andalites. The whole fact that they were gonna fucking genocide us kind of just swept under the rug, you know? We start doing like trade and exchanging technology with them and get like better shit. Marco and Axe kind of become like celebrities recounting the stories of the war. They're like the only two that kind of can like semi-deal with the fact of like all the atrocities committed. Axe obviously no problem, he's been born and raised in this culture. Marco just like deals with things by making jokes about it, so he's like internally fucked up, especially because of what he did to his dad, but he's just like making the best of a bad situation.
What happened to his mom?
His mom's still alive.
Just on like another planet with the
No. They saved the host when they were brought back to Earth to be to be put on to be executed.
Cool.
So
Sick.
they're fine.
But his dad's dead.
His dad's still alive.
Okay.
His mom and dad are back together.
His mom and dad are back together.
Oh, it was just the stepmom. The stepmom had to go.
The stepmom, we don't know what happened to her. She could have died in the battle. She could still be a controller somewhere else. We don't fucking know.
Okay.
She just gets fucked. Like, gets the raw end of the deal. Thanks, Marco. Cassie and Jake, they were like in a relationship through like most of the series. As soon as the war ends, they basically break up because Jake is just like full fucking just gone. Like he doesn't. He just becomes like all about duty. He doesn't understand how to function now that the war is over because he's just spent like the war at this point lasted 4 years. It was 4 years of just doing this. So he just doesn't know how to function outside of war. So he just kind of becomes isolated and really alone. Tobias, he disappears because Rachel was like his pseudo girlfriend. He doesn't know how to process it. He just has disappeared. No one's seen him since the end of the conflict. He's a hawk. Hawks have a short lifespan. He could be dead. Nobody knows. They've known. So, and then the book kind of ends with like, there's like, you know, there's space travel on Earth and stuff now. And Jake is assigned on this new mission because Axe has disappeared on a mission out in there. And so he recruits a team of people that basically says, we're going on a mission. We're probably not ever going to come back.
Does he recruit a team of teenagers with attitude?
Yeah. No. It's just like normal people. Like he's like just like part of like, you know, whatever the equivalent of military or whatnot would be at this point. He's also like, you know, a very respected
Space Force.
He joins Trump's Space Force. Folks. And the book ends with them finding some crazy new threat that is vague and has apparently killed Axe. and the book just ends with them going to. The book just ends going to fight it, and that's how the book ends.
Wow.
Like, war never ends. There's another conflict.
War crimes, war crimes, war crimes, war crimes.
Guys, I just want to say, this entire book series has just made me think, how cool would it be to be an iguana and then be able to have a really big tongue?
Dude, if you were a chameleon, you could actually change the color of your skin.
Dude,
that would be like...
That'd be fucking crazy, dude.
Okay, real talk though. What is darker, Animorphs or Game of Thrones? Because I'm not even sure. I feel like more people die.
The scales are bigger in Animorphs.
Animorphs has definitely got a bigger death count.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just as many disembowelments.
Yeah, but Jake doesn't fuck his cousin in Animorphs, and everyone's fucking their cousins in Game of Thrones.
That's
so,
true.
you know,
That's true.
whatever.
I mean, Rachel's like kind of like having a relationship with a bird. That's pretty weird.
That's strange.
Tom, how do we parse this? Like, how are we supposed to reconcile this with being alive as a human being with decency and dignity?
I've been trying to deal with that for like 20-something years, dude. Why do you think I am the way I am?
All right. Lecture over.
We're done.
Yay!
Yay! Now we know.
Jesus
Now
Christ.
we know.
I don't like that.
I'm gonna go catch some sick thermals.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm gonna turn into a big jar of gnats.
Wait, before we all leave, Professor, tell us about yourself and everything that the people clicking on this video need to know.
Sure.
Yeah. I am a guy, and I do like 3D animation and game design stuff. You can find me at Tommy Oliver Says on Twitter. I promise it's not as crazy heavy as this. It'll be a nice cleansing of the palette to play the demo of my game and watch my animations and stuff. Do it, it's fucking cool.
Are you always this charismatic?
No!
Yeah!
War crimes.
War crimes! War crimes! War crimes! War crimes! War crimes! War crimes! War crimes!